Here we go. And one thing I want to note, the reason I use the term white supremacy, or if you like, Western supremacy, is because this is a part of what's challenging us. When I say us, I'm in the hells of North America. So all of the peoples who are citizens within Western civilization. Our challenge today is that the white man of today is not as impressive as the white men of decades, especially comparatively. And because of the hubris, the white man thinks that he's here when in fact he's here, and he's not competitive because he's lying to himself and to others. Lying to others is not new, but lying to himself is a bit of a new thing. So what I'm forwarding is the idea that the Western man, believing in his own superiority, and if you like, the Western man and woman, we're lying to ourselves. And as a result, when all of a sudden China's firmly on top, we'll be shocked. And, that's not a good wake-up call. We wouldn't want to have that wake-up call during an open conflict of hot war, if you will. Let's go ahead and get to this work. Here we go.
NVIDIA is the largest pure play technology company the United States has ever seen. In fact, we're the largest pure play technology company the world's ever known. We create technology out of nothing. Our final product is pure technology. And in order to use it, you have to create.
Okay, I'm going to fast forward because this is a bit abstract and uninteresting to start with. But what I want you guys to make note of is that you see, and here we have people talking about DEI already. Very funny. Anyways, if someone wants to come on and talk about DEI, send in $1 using the information below. Just include your email address. I'll let you come on. And if you feel the need to talk about DEI, this is a part of the delusion of these people. But anyways, the irony is that the whites are so underdeveloped today, and this is not to suggest that the blacks are doing well or that the Latinos are doing well. I think that they're all underperforming and need help. That's why we have this movement, the assassin for all of humankind. But the fact of the matter is that America, this is comedy, America is fighting China with China. Marquette, what do you mean? Well, here's the kicker. This gentleman right here, CEO of NVIDIA, our foremost tech company, well, he's essentially Chinese, born in Taiwan, which, mind you, is in fact China. And the Thai people came from mainland China. They're all Han Chinese. He speaks Mandarin. He is a Chinese person. So the whites are so down bad. We're battling China with China, which is to say we're battling China with Chinese people. Even when we win international math competitions, our team is Chinese. And this should give you an indication of the fact that we're so very behind and lost and in a crisis for identity. And lastly, people don't realize that at a level, it's a war between civilizations. It's a war between lifeways. It's a war between racial groups. And the idea that we can count on a Chinese man who knows China is rising to not have any consideration or favorable leanings toward China, I don't know if that makes a lot of sense. There was a fellow, one Snowden, who was in the American military and because of his honesty had to endure exile in Russia. Now, mind you, he's not Russian at all. He is white. Russians are white, but he's not Russian. It's a tough place to want to have to be, especially if you don't speak Russian. Whereas, say you're this guy and you're successful in tech, and if you were to go onto the enemy side, you'd be welcomed. You'd be able to fit in visually. You'd be well compensated, well regarded, and all would be well. It wouldn't be the hardest transition I've ever seen, right? And that is one of the major issues that the American government is not able to deal with. There's so many lies going on, blaming things on DEI. We know we're in a very low state as a civilization when you have the white man is saying he's victim. Now imagine you're in a society that you created and organized, and you're claiming to be victim in the society when you're still the majority. It's insanity.
One of the reasons why this administration has made such a huge difference right away is this pro-energy growth initiative. Its attitude about energy is that if we don't have energy, we can't enable this new industry to thrive. It is absolutely true. So layer one is energy. Layer two are essentially the chips and systems, but the chips. That's where NVIDIA comes in. Layer three.
So there's no doubt that government has to play some part in the development of AI. And if the world hadn't been put on a model whereby we're essentially victim of Western, the nature of Europeans, which is to say violence, which forced the whole world to militarize and thereby invest significant resources, intellectual and financial, into militarization, which drives technology and much else. Because we're forced into that, it's going to impact the way everything on Earth operates. And to drive that, we need energy, that is electricity, technology, and government cooperating. But the problem is that government is going to be cooperating, especially in America, on behalf of corporations. And so government theoretically should be enacting policy to limit maybe data centers, maybe energy plants away from residential, away from things that are going to adversely affect natural water sources, aquifers, environment. But now that we're in this new Cold War against China, which only exists because of the European mentality, now we're going to have to sacrifice more of the environment, sacrifice more of your quality of life, sacrifice more of the land, more of the electrical grid, all to engage in this competition, which has been created by Europeans, which they're now starting to lose, in as much as the melanated persons on Earth have kind of figured out the game. Not so much the Africans or Latinos, but more so the Arabs and the Chinese and the Asians have figured it out. And now they're in serious competition. It's an unfortunate thing, because it'd be much better if we didn't have to dedicate all of our energies and resources to such things. The fact of the matter is that no one is really going to win in this. You don't realize, you think this is an AI race, but in actual fact, it's not an AI race. It's really a weapons race. Yet again, it's always been a weapons race. The sad reality is that when you see Europeans creating technology, it's to evolve new ways of taking life more effectively. That's all it is. So that's the biggest reason people are scared of one country having AI supremacy. And another thing to consider with AI is when you have all of these Geneva Conventions, which, mind you, when war breaks out between two hegemons, all bets are off, all rules are off. But if the two hegemons agree to not use nuclear force because they don't want to eradicate themselves by mutually assured destruction, then it goes on to the high-tech means of, removing human life from Earth, drones, AI-enabled drones, and all the rest of it. So that's really why we're in this race. And unfortunately, people aren't straightforward enough to say it. And that makes perfect sense, in as much as the European, and when I say European, I'm talking about of European origin, European culture, which would be inclusive of Australia, the United States, etc., New Zealand, all the rest of it. European leadership class has always been extraordinarily dishonest. And so with that being the case, we can't expect them to tell the truth and say this is another arms race. And hey, this is not new. We've done this before. We had an arms race against the Soviet Union. We're still in an arms race. So, carrying on. But yeah, the whites are fighting China with China, which means really they're fighting themselves, because you can't rely on people who are not of your tribe.
There's a whole bunch of
this guy wasn't even born in America, if I understand correctly. Someone fact check me. I believe he was born in Taiwan.
Software, and we build a whole bunch of software on top of our chips. And we're well known for this piece of software called CUDA, but there's hundreds of different pieces of software that we create that enables people to do AI for different fields of science or language or images, whatever it happens to be, robotics and manufacturing and such. But that third layer is called infrastructure, basically software. Now, people historically have thought of infrastructure really as cloud. But increasingly, it's really important to realize that infrastructure includes land, power, shell, because these are, and I'll speak about this in a second, that this industry spawned another industry altogether, and I'll come back to that. But the third.
So one thing that's really important to understand is, with regards to politics, is how does business and politics interact? And what you're going to see, because there's this renewed need for AI, which is to say armaments, which is still the military industrial complex under a new guise of technology. Because of that, it's now going to affect policy. So you're about to see a total retreat of, climate change being a thing, green and protect the environment. Oh, that's out the window. That's out the window. Environment's dead and gone. And not only is it out the window now, because of course you have the Donald, but in addition, whoever comes next, whomever that may be, presuming he doesn't try to establish some kind of formal dictatorship, which I wouldn't put it past him. The guy is unpredictable in most ways. But even the next person who comes in will be bowing down to big tech and big business. And the reason that big tech is about to be more powerful than ever is because with the advent of artificial intelligence, they're now going to infuse that into every industry. So every industry will be controlled by AI. And because every industry is controlled by AI and there's greater need, they'll all be on the same page and say, hey, we need the data centers. We need the bigger electrical plants. We're not producing enough electricity. And hey, remove the regulations, screw the environment. Now, mind you, I'm not a climate change guy and I'm not a big green guy. I'm definitely against, coal, which is something that China's been doing for a long time at a high rate. But I'd like to live on a planet where you have air that's clean to breathe and all the rest of it. And unfortunately, since the Europeans have come to dominate in the last 300 years, we've seen that the planet Earth has been on a rapid spiral downward. And mind you, if we have any white supremacists on or people who feel like they strongly disagree and you think you're not dumb and you have evidence of that, send $1 using the information below with your email address. We'll let you on.
Third layer is basically infrastructure. And that infrastructure includes financial services because it takes an enormous amount of capital to do what we do. And historically, all of that software. The layer above that, and this is where people largely focus on when they talk about AI, which is the AI models. This is the revolutionary, of course, ChatGPT, incredible work that Anthropic does with Claude, Google does with Gemini, and what XAI does with Grok. But the important thing to realize, those are 4 of the 1.5 million AI models in the world. AI is not just intelligence that understands English or language, but it's AI that understands genes, proteins, chemicals.
So, it just really is funny when we talk about intelligence, and I'm not talking about as far as artificial intelligence goes, I'm talking about human intelligence. The fact of the matter is that there are various types of human intelligence. People may have different kinds of competence. And curiously, I find very often engineers not very well spoken, not good communicators. And being able to identify what's important and what's meaningful to say is also a form of intelligence. I find that the things that he started with are terribly uninteresting, extraordinarily basic, not insightful, not the kind of stuff you'd want to hear from a CEO of NVIDIA. But anyways, I'm going to go to another video of him. I might come back to that one and see if he's speaking of anything that's a little bit more meaningful. And I say that not to suggest that I'm brighter than he is, across the board, but rather to say, hey, I went to Johns Hopkins in Berkeley, and most of the geniuses lecturing, to listen to them, they sounded like idiots. And similar with Elon Musk, he's a bumbling fool when he's speaking. Let's take a look at this clip, maybe better.
I know that you've got a powerful, competitor in Huawei. And Huawei has a lot of advantages you don't have. Why don't you describe this competition? Are we really losing?
Okay, now here's a little bit of background. Huawei is obviously a Chinese company that makes phenomenal tech. And unlike most people you may hear speaking on this, they've not done any business with the Chinese government. They've not been involved at any level in the Chinese tech sphere. They've not even, some of them haven't even visited China, which is extraordinary. In my case, I've been there like 14 times. So that's an important thing to note. So I can give some meaningful commentary. And even when I was last in China, which was some time ago, it was 2020. And even then, everything that I observed was wildly in advance of the United States. I mean, not even close. I was in a train station that was so massive, so clean, so technologically advanced. That's the station, not to mention the train itself. It was a pleasure to ride on, and it was ultra fast. I thought I was going to take a nap on the train. Got there so damn fast, I didn't even get to take a nap. Just phenomenal tech on a consistent basis, hyper modern cities, great infrastructure. They even take out the time to make their roads wider than ours for the economy of the future, transporting and conveying goods. The thoughtfulness and the level of organization is extraordinary. Then you'll have American commentators will make fun of the Chinese and say, oh, they built a city that's sitting empty. This city never, they built it, $1 billion waste of money. They do that as well. And that's a holdover from their heritage. The Chinese Communist Party was essentially, and in fact, the modern Chinese state, I'd say round one of its creation was the Soviet Union. Round two, the Chinese Communist Party was able to develop themselves and become reasonably independent. They survived the end, or shall I say, the crumbling of the Berlin Wall and the dissolution of the Soviet Union. They had obviously Mao Zedong, which created their cultural footing and the unity of that nation state and the true power, and oriented them forward. Then they had Deng Xiaoping in the 1980s with the economic reforms that made them more capitalist in orientation, though their economy still retained some central planning features. And it's been working quite effectively, especially against the West, i.e. the United States. And today we find that they have an effective hybrid system that in some ways underperforms versus the capitalist system, but in other ways overperforms versus the capitalist system. Whether we're talking about if there's potholes in the roads, how rapidly they're able to fix them and coordinate. And then if we look at values, I'd say that their values today, as is true with Russia, are the values of America yesterday that made America strong and effective. But anyways, let's hear what the gentleman has to say with regards to this question about Huawei. And I just lastly want to remark not only the infrastructure and the infrastructure projects that China is able to perform on at a much higher level, but also consumer goods, what the everyday person is able to experience in China versus what the everyday person in America is able to experience. I mean, the Chinese created a fold phone, and we're not allowed to get them. Now, mind you, the Westerners, as I say, they're extraordinary liars. They claim that, we believe in freedom and democracy and open markets. We are not even allowed to get most of the Chinese tech that we want to get. And that's why you think America is so far in advance. America doesn't even want to compete. They don't believe in true capitalism. They won't compete with the Chinese. That's why they keep the door closed to Chinese goods. And that's why they must tariff, because they can't compete in a true capitalist system. Capitalist system, you should bring down the tariffs very low and compete, and then engage in your competitive advantage. But the problem is that the Chinese are competitively advantaged in damn near everything. And that's why American government doesn't want to put us in head-to-head competition. Now, here's the funnier thing too. Now, mind you, I got one of these phones. There's a Chinese version of this that is way, way better and folds out to a full damn iPad. I kid you not. It's extraordinary. It's a threefold. We can't even get them in the United States. So I say all that to say that there's so many lies. We're better, but you don't want to compete. Tesla's the greatest. Oh, do you really believe that? I'm telling you, that's not the truth. Listen, I remember in 2020 when I was now mind you, in 2020, I had two Rolls Royce and an i8. And essentially the Rolls Royce, in my opinion, kind of is like a shiesty BMW. Long story. Those, if you know, you know. But the point is, one of the things I thought was really cool when I got the Rolls is the aerial view. The technology has obviously, LiDAR and all this other crap, but the technology allows you to feel like you're getting an aerial view down on your car, so you can look downward on your car. This is obviously due to a system of cameras and a lot of great software. And so I remember getting in a taxi in Shanghai. And I get in the taxi. No, actually, this was Beijing. This was my first trip that year. I went to China twice in 2020. I get in the taxi with with my assistant, actually. It was the Beijing trip. And I'm looking at the infotainment for the driver. Now, mind you, this is a taxi. It's their version of Uber, which is called Didi. Mind you, Uber went to China and failed. And now they have Didi, which is like a homegrown solution. And gentleman writes, "Hey, Marquette, I'm a Chinese fan watching from Chengdu." Oh, shout out. That's a privilege, man. I really appreciate you. Shout out to the Chinese. God willing, I'll be able to do some more business there. good people there. It's a hard market to penetrate, though, I tell you that. But anyways, I'm looking at the infotainment in the center, and I'm just so perplexed because I'm looking at basically the exact same technology that I had in a brand new Rolls Royce. And I look over at my assistant and she looks at me like, ain't that a bit? Now, mind you, this car had to have probably been like 30,000 USD with the same tech as $250,000, actually not a quarter of a $350,000 Rolls Royce. That was in 2020. That was in 2020. And that was regular stuff. That was not high end or special. I'm telling you, you guys are being ripped off, cheated, bamboozled, hoodwinked, and deceived. Anyways, carrying on.
It was a very good headline.
It was a great headline, yeah.
And it apparently caught a lot of attention. As you know, with headlines, the disclaimer part, the foundation part was left out of the headline. But the way to think about that is, let me just handicap it right now. If you look at AI and go back to the first thing that we said, AI is a 5-layer cake. Let's just always simplify. It's not quite this simplistic.
Terrible.
But let's simplify AI into a 5-layer cake. Energy, chips, infrastructure, models, and applications. Okay? Let's hand it.
Okay, and just to give you guys a note real quick to further simplify his simplification, that last layer, the applications, that's what you interact with. The application, web application, mobile application, you might call them apps. So that's what you interact with. Those other layers that he identified, those are the things within the business, or those are the other businesses cooperating to create something that the consumer can use, whether the consumer is an individual or it's a government. When he says that first layer is energy, and you're going to see these guys emphasizing energy, which is going to lead to drill. It's going to lead to coal. It's going to lead to oil, and all of these pushes, which can only happen with government cooperation. Now, the problem is that the government is about to start working even harder for big business and for the military industrial complex, not for you, not for your quality of life. I've seen situations where people have a perfectly good neighborhood. Now all of a sudden a data center moves in, or some other huge energy guzzler moves in, and this is becoming problematic. And it will only increase because the United States is trying to catch up with China's energy production, because energy is, of course, one of those critical layers. And I would even challenge the bottom layer, the first layer, to compete in AI. So you're going to see this is going to be a huge item, which reminds me, I need to buy some stock in some energy companies, not energy of all varieties except solar and wind. None of the green energies, all the dirty energies.
Cap it across the from bottom to top. At the lowest level, energy, China has twice the amount of energy we have as a nation.
I want to ask about.
There you go. They have twice as much energy. Now, also, it's worth noting that their population is in excess of 1 billion. So sometimes we have to know that these speakers are not giving us all the information. Sometimes it's on accident, sometimes it's on purpose. And it may be to push his agenda. So his agenda as an executive of a tech firm that requires a huge amount of energy, increasingly more, it'll be necessary. Mind you, I want my moderators to be more aggressive. I see people, putting nonsense into the chat. I'd appreciate you if you get these devils up out of here. Thank you. So as a result, they're going to push their need for energy, and they're going to use lies to do it. So they'll use either outright lies or they'll use manipulation. So they may say, oh, China has twice as much energy. It's like, well, also America has a population of, let's say, 360 million. And let's say China's like 1.4 billion, right? There's a lot more people. In fact, it's a great deal more than twice. So it would absolutely make sense that they'd have 3 times as much energy as the United States. They may also have a significant rural poor population there too. So these are all things that are not being factored into these explanations that are specious arguments. And ultimately, they're dangerous because they're deceptive.
Twice as much energy as we have as a nation. And our economy.
And I want you guys to remember, like this fellow here, who again is Chinese, he is playing into the psychology of the white supremacists, because the white supremacists, we're the best, we're the best at everything. I've been to China. I like China. I've been there, but we're the best at everything. We have the most energy. We're energy efficient, energy green. it plays into the psychology of these psychopaths who think that we have to be the most or the best, whatever the superlative is. And they don't center themselves on the reality of China has 1.4 billion people. Your country has 360 million people. You don't need to compete on certain things because it's not sensible. But we have gone way past being sensible, reasonable, and logical.
He's larger than theirs. Makes no sense to me. We also know that
I'm going to go back. That's
as
important.
much energy as we have as a
Listen
nation.
to this last part.
And our economy is larger than theirs. Makes no sense to me. We also.
Excuse me. He's being very strategic here. And I'm glad I'm breaking this down because it's actually him leaving the blank for you to fill it in. He's saying, you know, they have way more energy, but our economy is bigger. Makes no sense to me. What's the suggestion? The suggestion is that since our economy is bigger, then naturally we should have more energy than they do. Huh. Is that quite right? And you also have to ask, is that true? Is that true? So the question is that true that our economy is bigger? That's actually something to question because unfortunately we have dishonest politicians. Our political class has started to behave like the political class of the Soviet Union, you know, falsifying numbers. And that's when they were rapidly in their descent. Yes. Is that true? Is our economy actually bigger? And then here's the second thing. Is our economy supposed to be bigger? And here's the third thing. Even if we're outperforming them in GDP, what does per capita income look like in general? And more importantly, what does per capita income growth look like? And what does inflation look like? So there's so many things that are often ignored on purpose. And these things are the things that keep you and I in a cage.
Know that one of the most important initiatives, one of the most important policies of this administration, and there was the first thing that President Trump said to me when we met, is, listen, we need to reindustrialize America. We need to onshore manufacturing again. We need to help America make things again. It's going to create jobs.
Now, let me tell you how brainless that actually sounds. We need to help America make things again. And I don't even think that that's the language of this gentleman. I think he may have been actually quoting that from the very eloquent Donald Trump. We need to make things again, which is to say, like, where do we need to make things again, or do we need to make high tech again? And if we're going to make high tech, then that means we need a significantly larger force of engineers. As it turns out that China has more honors students than America has total students. And for that reason, we know that we can only compete for so long, even with artificial intelligence. So that's a problem. And I've said this many times. You cannot make America great again without making Americans great again. And as it stands, you have a group of people, a population who thinks that they're really impressive when actually they're quite unimpressive. And we all must grow and improve. So that's number one. So when he says we need to make things again, we need to reindustrialize. No, we need to essentially become Taiwan, which is where he was born. And Taiwan produces high tech. That's what America needs to focus on, high tech. Trump, with his thoughtless tariffs, we need to, make things again. So his tariffs were too far reaching, not precise enough. And because of that, Americans and American businesses have been, suffering. And also when Trump says he's going to give you guys money back, well, he's really just giving you money that he took from you. Well, how do you take it from you? Because a tariff is essentially a tax. You even hear folks like Thomas Sowell explain things like this. But a tariff is a tax. However, you may not be able to understand it as such, but it essentially is. If you're importing this phone from India or from China, and today the phone costs $500 when you import it, but he puts on a tariff and now the phone is going to be $1,000, well, that's going to go to the consumer. They're going to pay the additional money. And then Trump is going to collect the tariff money, and then he says he's going to give some back to you. Well, he's just giving back a percentage, number one, not all of it. And number two, he's giving back the money he took from you. So there's no net profit on that for you as a individual citizen. It's the most Looney Tune thing on earth. And in fact, it is, I'd say, antithetical to the pure capitalism that the Americans teach you about in Economics 101. And unfortunately, most of you have not had a proper economic education, especially if you went to a public school in a place that was surrounded by low-income property, because schools are funded by property taxes. I didn't have my first proper economics course until I was in university, and it was a pity because I went to Berkeley, and so it was a highly advanced econ class. It was very rigorous, and I learned a lot. Most people wouldn't have survived in there. Now, here's my point, and I like to speak to these things because I have the academic understanding, but also the on-the-ground experiential understanding. I had a cosmetics business. I have a number of businesses that you guys may not be aware of, but I had a cosmetics business focusing on mostly soap, liquid soap, and lotion. So liquid soap and lotion, very simple stuff. And it was a mid-tier product, not cheap, not expensive, mid-tier. And I was importing from Eastern Europe. I had to shut the business down due to tariffs, and the tariffs were fairly insane. Say I import a bottle of soap, $6. I'm paying a $7 tariff in some cases, $8 tariff in some cases. And so it's just not manageable. And the worst thing about it, because Trump is changing his mind, you can't quite figure out what your balance sheet is going to look like, because you're not able to understand the tariff system because it's changing too quickly. And even the shipper and the manufacturer and the factory doesn't understand the tariff system. They don't know what's going to be charged. So I had to shut down the business. It was the smartest thing I can do. And what I learned from the COVID situation in 2020, when I was running a tech firm that was very successful, and in fact, I was doing business with China, I did not shut that business down quickly enough, and I lost millions of dollars because month after month we were losing money, and I was waiting for macroeconomics to change. I was waiting for government policy to change, and it didn't change. And I didn't realize you're not able to predict this, Marquette. You don't have enough experience with this. Same thing is true of tariffs. I don't have enough experience. I can't predict it. So I shut that business down immediately. Now, what's the lesson for you as an American citizen? The lesson for you is that Trump didn't create a new job. I didn't say, okay, I'm not going to use my factories in Eastern Europe. I'm going to hire Americans. I'm going to make my soap here. I was like, no, that's so much work to uproot from there, where I've been doing business for half a decade, and then start from scratch in America with no supports, no infrastructure, no subsidy, no connections, and no faith that the American worker knows how to or wants to make soap, right? So I just shut the business down. So I lost money, employees lost money, consumers lost low-cost goods in America. Did any American gain a job? Did America gain a new business to increase GDP? Did we benefit in any way? No way whatsoever, because I'm not going to start a new business here in the soap business. You see what I'm saying? And that's the part that never gets told. Trump is doing the same kind of thing that Barack Obama did in terms of hurting small business. Now, if I was a huge business, I could adjust, right? Like Apple, when he was like, you can't make your phones in China. They're like, okay, we'll make them in India. And they got billions of dollars to make that change. And they have every incentive. Small business doesn't have enough money and resources to make that change swiftly and financially efficiently.
That part of the economy has been outshored, offshored, and completely gutted the United States. We need to bring that back, and he needs my help to do so. And so that entire sector of the economy is missing. And
mind you, did you guys see the jobs reports? Did the jobs report look good? Did you see Trump's plan working?
However, without energy, how do we build?
Now, again, you notice the energy thing keeps coming up. Energy. I'm pointing this out to you for a reason.
Chip plants.
By the way, some of my more intelligent saints, if you guys are in the chat, if there's any good energy stocks that I might need to scoop up, let me know. I might be interested.
Computer system plants. And these AI data centers, we call them AI factories. We're building simultaneously 3 different types of factories in the United States. Chip factories, supercomputer factories, and AI factories. They all require energy, every single one of them. Yeah. And so
now, remember, Trump's idea was that he's bringing jobs back. This fellow was just talking about reindustrializing. So I hope that the interviewer is going to say, okay, you're building a data center. How many employees? Now, I want him to actually ask it this way so you can understand the gap. I want him to say, what is the square footage of your average data center? I want him to ask that. What's the square footage? And he's probably gonna say something crazy, like 100,000 square feet. Whoa, that's huge. And then I want him to follow up and say, how many employees will you hire there? New employees. 20, 25. Come on now. You guys see what I'm talking about? Come on now.
So on the one hand, we want to reindustrialize the United States. How do you do that without energy? And so the fact that we vilified energy for so long, President Trump sticking his neck out and taking it on the chin and helping the country realize that energy is necessary for our growth is one of the greatest things he's done right off the bat. And so now, at the energy level, back to that stack, we're,
Now this is bizarre because you hear the term "our." Energy is necessary for our growth. Do they ever explain the "our" part? I get it. For your company, you need energy. I get that part, but I'm not hearing the "our" part. Like explain the "our" part. Huh? That's the part they never explain.
50%. And they're growing straight up. We're kind of flat right now. And so, number one, energy. Number two, chips. We're generations ahead. We are generations ahead on chips. And I think everybody recognizes that. Number three, infrastructure. If you want to build a data center.
I just want to clarify for those of you who may be less technical, when he says we're generations ahead, he's not talking about human or family generations, which is a much longer time period. He's talking about generations of technology, which, mind you, you might see 2-3 generations of technology be released in 1 year. So I just want you guys to know that that language is misleading. I don't think he was trying to do that intentionally. I hope not, but that was misleading language.
Center here in the United States, from breaking ground to standing up a AI supercomputer, is probably about 3 years. They can build a hospital in a weekend. That's a real challenge. And so
that's a meaningful fact. And that is the reason that it's hard to compete with China, because business and government is essentially in bed together, but the government is in control, you see. Whereas with America, business and government is in bed together. Business kind of has the upper hand, but we do have regulations, and regulations are important. We're about to probably see a lot of regulations be ignored. And what's not new is that generally regulations and laws affect the little guy, not the big guys. What's an example of that, Marquette? You genius, you. Well, look at the pardon system. The everyday people, if you do something goofy, then you're going to jail, little buddy, especially if you're black, you're going to jail. Believe that. Now, if you're, say, Hunter Biden, you might not have to go to jail. Or if you're one of the 1,400 plus, yes, damn near 1,500 people that Trump has pardoned, you get to go free. Now, most of them serious criminals, financial crimes. We're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars. Some of them have already reoffended. And it only verifies that Trump is no believer in democracy. He cares nothing about everyday people, be them white, black, Asian, or otherwise. He only cares about his rich fat cat buddies. And that's why he's abused the pardon system at a level that has been unprecedented. I do believe that Donald Trump has pardoned more people than every other president combined. And someone can fact check me on that. I'm always happy to figure out if I'm as bright as I recall myself being.
At the infrastructure layer, their velocity of building things, because they are builders, their velocity of building things is extraordinarily high. Now, really quickly on chips, we're several generations ahead, but don't be complacent. Remember, semiconductors is a manufacturing process. Anybody who thinks China can't manufacture is missing a big idea.
Yeah, okay. That's not
But China discounts energy costs for a chip company by 50%.
That's right.
Now you see, here we go. We're talking about energy again, but dig this. And this is why your government is so wicked, ladies and saints. It's so wicked because we have huge billion-dollar companies. In fact, in this case, we have the wealthiest company on earth. And what are they about to ask for? Subsidy, also known as what? When you and I get it, what's it called? SNAP benefits, welfare. So we now have a corporation that is extraordinarily huge and well-funded, is about to cry about, why don't we get any subsidies? Which, mind you, again, goes against what we understand capitalism to be. You see, that's communism. The government subsidizing corporations. Don't we believe in laissez-faire and all that stuff? All these Latin terms I can't remember the meaning of. You know, keep religion out, keep the government out of business, all that stuff, hands off. So you're about to hear an excruciatingly wealthy company cry about why it's not getting your taxpayer-funded welfare. That's insanity.
Provide free transportation for employees to come out to the factory.
That's right.
I mean, you can't do that. I mean,
Our energy cost is more expensive than theirs in the first place.
Absolutely.
And then they discounted 50%. And so we're probably call it 4 to 8 times the cost. Yeah.
So tell me, how do you feel about this great competition with China?
Now, again, I want you guys to track something. So they're identifying that China's winning in certain aspects, namely the way they're organizing government, labor, and corporations, and the interplay between the three, which is to say the Chinese model, which is in fact a unique model. It is a Chinese model. It's not the Soviet model. It's not a communist model. It is a Chinese model, a modern Chinese model. And here's the curious part. Well, why is it that they've never once said, oh, that's the superior way to do things. That's the right way. That's the competitive way. That's the effective way. That's the superior way. That's the innovative way. They've never once given China that credit. Notice that. Psychologically, notice that. So often they go around and they promote, we need to spread democracy and freedom, also known as capitalism, opening up markets, which really it's greed. Government as instrument to plutocrats and capitalists. But they just refuse to acknowledge that the Chinese model seems to be outperforming the Western model. Why is that?
I mean, the government is putting enormous resources underneath their champion. We don't do that in this country. You know, how do you feel about that?
Well, before I get there, don't let me not answer that question. I'm dying to answer it.
I'm dying.
But let me handicap the next 2 layers.
Let me answer something else.
The language, the model layer, United States frontier models, our frontier models are unquestionably world-class. We are probably, call it 6 months ahead.
See, now you get that piece. They're talking about generations ahead. And now he said 6 months ahead. 6 months is nothing. 6 months is nothing. In business, it's nothing. Especially in the AI world, is really nothing. You're 6 months ahead. You might as well say that you're not ahead, because that's nothing. Now, that's curious because there's this narrative of superiority. If you just 6 months ahead, maybe you're not superior. But here's the kicker: the guy that has you 6 months ahead is in fact Chinese. You're using a Chinese person against the Chinese. The idea that you're insulated and protected and have any advantage is fairly ridiculous.
However, out of the 1.4 million models, most of them are open source. China is well ahead, way ahead on open source. Now, the reason why open source is so important is because without open source, startups can't thrive, you can't use AI. Basically, no ability to fundamentally advance themselves unless you have open source. Without Linux, where would we be? Without Kubernetes, without PyTorch, all of these different types of technologies that made AI thrive are all open source. They are well ahead of us on open source. And then the layer above that, applications. If you were to do a poll of their society and ours, and you ask them, is AI likely to do more good than harm? They're going to say, in their case, 80% would say AI will do more good than harm. In our case, it'd be the other way around. And so that tells you something that's very, very important.
Now, it doesn't matter which way that conversation is going, because the truth is that AI is going to do more harm than good. And because the world has been on a European model the world has suffered. And this is a conversation. I have some arguments that I'm not going to make right now. I'm saving them up for when I finally get a brave white supremacist on board and we can have this debate. But there's just no doubt that AI is going to do more harm than good. And in particular, and I hate to even have to say this out loud, but my particular fear is for those of modest IQ, because they will suffer so greatly with most AI models being smarter than they are. Most AI models that you're engaging as like a consumer, with consumer technology, consumer customer service, consumer grade applications, will be smarter than them. And they will have no opportunity for forward mobility. They'll be happy to get a universal basic income, not realizing that that universal basic income is yet another trick. Well, Marquette, what do you mean universal basic income is a trick? All it is giving a way to keep the way the society is organized, like the organization of society, to keep that going and keep people moving and commerce flowing. But there will essentially be a freezing of castes. You will be locked into a caste. Marquette, well, how's that make sense? The people who have land now will be the same people who have land in the future, as long as they can maintain it and don't lose it. And the only way they'd really lose it is government taxation. Now, mind you, if there's a universal basic income, does it then make sense that there should be any taxation? Listen to me. Listen to me. This is how devious the government is. You want to talk about matrix? We've not even cracked the goddamn surface on this stuff. If you have universal basic income, meaning the government's giving out money, why do we even need taxes? We don't need taxes. Just keep the money, government. If you have the money to give, and if you're giving the money, where the hell's the money coming from? This stuff is so devious. I'm telling you, you have no idea how devious this stuff is. The things that I could predict, and it's just dark. I don't even want to talk about some of it, to be honest with you. With the United States, for example, with the decline of the dollar, massive inflation, largely caused by the United States. What happens when your government runs out of money, wealth, gold, hard currency? Listen to me. You're poor in all of those things. Maybe you're poor in those critical things, and then some core commodities, also things like uranium, coltan, rare earths, important stuff like that. Gold, things like that. Mineral wealth. When you're poor in the mineral wealth, you're also poor in currency, fiat and hard currency, but you're rich in weapons and weapons tech. Then what happens? Come on, guys. Then what happens? Well, you just go take the things that you need. It's blatant robbery. Yes. I mean, like, it's robbery at that point. That's what you do. You go and rob. Now, here's the thing. When we go and rob, there's like an authority, a police, a government. If America goes and robs, who stops them? The only person that would have the incentive to stop them is the person that's getting robbed. But most of the places America goes to rob can't stop America. Libya, Syria, some of them I can't name. Afghanistan, there's some of them I can't name. Some of them I can't name. Sudan, Yemen, come on. And the list goes on indefinitely. But here's the next one. Venezuela. Right now, you're being groomed and conditioned into the idea that Venezuela, it's a bad guy over there. They're all selling drugs over there. That's all they do over there. Really? And if they are, let's say it's true, what does that have to do with the United States of America? If you have real borders, why can't you stop the drugs from coming in? You have the most advanced military in the world and the biggest budget in the world. You have the greatest deployment of military assets the planet Earth has ever seen. You can't stop poor Venezuelan or Colombian or Mexican drug traffickers from getting into the United States. Well, then how could you ever defeat insurgents? How could you ever defeat organized crime networks? Come on. It's not realistic. How could you ever win a war with China? That's tech enabled. You can't beat like ragtag bunches of drug traffickers from poor countries, but you can beat China in a war. You can beat Russia in a war. Come on, guys. All lies. Do you guys believe this stuff? You believe they're trying to secure the border? You believe those are drug dealers that they're blowing up in Venezuelan waters? If it was, take them to trial. Why can't they get a trial? Because they're not drug dealers. They're just, who knows what they are? Maybe they're fishermen. Maybe they're traveling. Maybe they're trying to escape the regime. Who knows? We don't know because your government is committing crimes and murdering them. That's why we don't know. But what I'm telling you guys is that what I've said before, wealth through unity. If you're not together, you will be weak and you will be abused because this country increasingly only respects power. And you can't keep what you can't protect. Come on now. But what I was saying, the scam that you guys are not yet aware of is this. They give you all a universal basic income, which is to suggest that this may result from AI taking jobs. And this is not only the basic jobs. We're talking about taking the jobs that educated people do: writer, engineer, whether it's a software developer, UI, UX, videographer, video editor, speech writer, essayist, polemicist, podcaster, all of it gone, done. There won't be any new celebrities in the future. If you're a celebrity now, fantastic, you're locked in. But in the future, there won't be any celebrities. So with that being the case, the universal basic income, you guys all have the same income. That sounds communistic, doesn't it? Equal incomes. The question is, well, how do you get ahead? You'll really only be able to get ahead in selling the things that are illegal to sell or the things that are immoral to sell. That's really will be the only way to get ahead, right? Selling illicit drugs or women selling themselves. And you can't sell yourself online anymore, sis. Marquette, why is that? Oh dear, OF is going to be gone because they're going to have AI depictions and guys will be able to see any kind of woman they can dream up in their sick brain. They can even use AI avatars of famous people. They're not going to want you. And even if you did make an account, people wouldn't be able to tell the difference between you, a real person, and then the actual AI. So that OF is going to be done, finito. So the only way you'll be able to make money off your body, sis, is you're actually going to have to get on that blade in real life and actually hand your body out to strange men. And then you'll be able to accumulate capital to get the advantage, to get the finer things in life, to get yourself ahead. And human beings will always want to engage in hierarchy. I'm better than this person. I'm above that person. Come on now. Might sound dark and devious, but this is the facts. This is where the logic leads to. If you don't mind walking with me on this, this is where the logic leads to. Shout out to Gerald writes, or Gerald, I don't know, but I'll say Gerald. He writes, for the big homie, I have your book. I have your book of dark truths, the Master Communicator course, and Boss University. Have been on Patreon since 2019. That's like when I got a Patreon. Wow. He writes, so much game and income I've received because of you. Appreciate you, big homie. Keep killing it. I appreciate that message. That's such a beautiful, positive message. And it's inspiring to me to hear that the gentleman has prospered. That means a lot. I thank you for sharing that. And I thank you for your loyalty over the years. I also acknowledge Omari. He writes, so I've had a problem with taking compliments from people. I'm better about it now than I was as a boy, but there are still times when I'm like a deer in the headlights. Any idea why I'm like this and how I can fix it? Well, I couldn't say why you're like that based on this short message, but I can tell you how to fix it. The simple way is to be gracious and to be prepared. In the Master Communicator course, we talk about so much of excellence in communication is merely preparation. You see things that might look like, oh, this person just showed up and boom, did their thing. No, sirree. They've had extraordinary amounts of practice. And in some cases, there are things that are memorized or things that are planned out, and you can use that to your advantage. For those of you who do want to excel in communication, SKOOL, school.com/Marquette, MARQUETT. Hit the courses button. Master Communicator course will change your life. But for the gentleman's specific question, I would ask myself, what's the most common compliment that I get? Then I would design a response for that. I'd practice it and execute it every time. One of the lamest things you can do is if someone gives you a compliment, you shoot it right back. It's a bit insincere, right? Like if I'm out in the world and someone says like, oh man, that blazer's dope. And I'm like, oh, I like yours too. No, I say, thank you very much. I appreciate that. If it's a man, if it's a woman, oh, thank you. That means a lot coming from you. Boom, full stop. Be thankful. Take it in. You see, a compliment is like someone handing you a gift and then you being weird about it is like fumbling the gift or dropping it on the floor. Accept it, receive it, thank them graciously, and carry on. But what I'd really recommend to this gentleman actually is Boston University. And I'll tell you why. Because the reason that you're not able to accept the compliment in the best way is because they're telling you, hey, I see you in this way, whether it's your good looks or it's your height or it's your style of dress or your charm, whatever it is, there's something up here about you. And I want to commend you for that. I appreciate that about you. And it's you not feeling like you're the part. It's you feeling like you're an imposter. It's you feeling like they're telling you that you're something that isn't all the way true. You don't feel like it. So when you feel like it, you'll receive it with a lot more graciousness, not with arrogance or cockiness or narcissism, but you'll feel it like this person is speaking the truth and I accept their truth. And I'm thankful that I live out that truth. Boston University is the one that really gets your mindset correct. May I acknowledge Teddy with the baller alert, first baller alert. Should be a lot of ballers on this one because we're really talking about something cerebral. Teddy writes, peace of the saints. I want to take a moment to thank you for this consistent ism and the knowledge you share with us. This is the least I can do in return. I appreciate you. Shout out to Teddy. He's been rocking with us a long time. Always comes in at the baller level. I also acknowledge Kyle came in with the baller alert. And shout out to Kyle. Kyle's very technical and a good brother. One of the confirmed guys within this thing of ours. He writes, the power companies and infrastructure to deliver power are not anywhere near where they need to be for AI. I agree. I spent 26 hours, bro, that's a lot of hours, dealing with the power company over 30 days, explaining my usage with no option to speak with an expert on IT and electrical engineering. Now, that's a pity, but that also might be an opportunity. Hopefully you don't have to build a whole electrical company or start your own grid or, create your own power source. But, it lets you know that there's going to be inevitable growth. And, if someone would give me another reminder, we do want to look at some opportunities in electric or energy. Shout out to Ramon. He writes, tuition. Side note, I had to purchase those jogging pants before they were gone. Peace of saints. Oh, yes. We have a pair of sweats that we are about to discontinue. This is a good time to get your sweats because I trust you guys are probably using those instead of the uniform shorts as it is colder. But we're going to discontinue those. Those are stitched. And again, certain places that we import from, tariffs, other issues, and those are stitched. So they're a bit expensive. So with the tariff, it's even more. So we're going to discontinue those after 48 hours. You can find those on the community tabs or at sasnbrand.com. Shout out to Jefferson. He writes, I hope those watching appreciate your predictions on AI and take your warning seriously. All your other predictions have been spot on. Peace of the saints. I appreciate you. Again, they better. They absolutely better. And we've already seen like Black women, for example, have been like the first victim of, government firings, which people have associated with DEI. And I trust that a great bit of it has been true DEI hires that have been fired, but also just removing the fat. As organizations, corporations grow, there's going to be more fat, so to speak. And so that's always going to happen. So the bloat was reduced in government, and I trust various other places. But the least skilled or the least liked persons, of course, are going to be the ones that are going to go first. But there will be more. And what you're seeing has happened to the Black female. That was government policy. But you're about to also see the economy change. You see, and that's going to be more far reaching. And that's going to be something that you will not be able to correct with government policy. You won't be able to stop with government policy because of the way the entire world is oriented. Shout out to Michael. He writes, the tech and quality and materials they use in their cars are far superior. The automakers in the West are implementing countless touch screens and cheap plastics to cut costs. Shout out to Trayvon. He writes, peace of saints, couple questions. Number one, what is a liberal white woman? Number two, what is a liberal white woman ideology? Number three, is there a difference between liberal white woman ideology and gender feminist ideology? Good question. So a liberal white woman is mostly what you encounter today in the society where politics is involved, unless someone is actually a conservative, not only by word, but by action. A liberal white woman, in short, and so I'll answer the second question and the first question at the same time. Liberal white woman ideology is rooted in gender feminism. There's two major schools of feminism. There's equity feminism, there's gender feminism. Equity feminism is one that seeks for the female to have equal opportunity, not equal outcome, equal protections under the law. Yes, no advantages. And remember, it doesn't say that man and woman are the same. It says that they should have the same opportunities and legal rights. That's equity feminism. Then you have gender feminism, which is all circled around the ideology that the genders are largely the same. There's almost no difference between man and woman. We're both strong. And it even goes so far as to suggest that biological differences are largely meaningless. And much of what we observe in the society is a result of conditioning and enculturation and yada, yada, yada. So if it wasn't for the way the culture and the environment is, like men and women, we'd be on equal footing at everything. And to create that, they implement all of these systems and ideas to push women in certain directions or to push them up. And this is the man-hating feminism. This is the feminism that doesn't actually seek equal opportunity or equal protection under the law. It, in fact, reaches for dominance. And that's why, for example, you have over-enrollment of females in university, 60 to 40, 60% female, 40% male. This is why you have over-representation of females in certain areas where it just probably doesn't make sense, like law enforcement. They're overrepresented. Marquette, they're not more than men. They're not, but they're more than they should be there. Now, think of it oppositely. Do you ever see men overrepresented in spaces that are more appropriate for women, like babysitting, daycare, preschool teachers? No, we're not overrepresented at all. But if there's a woman in law enforcement, they're overrepresented because they shouldn't be there. They don't have the requisite biological abilities to operate in the field. Anyway, so I say that to say this. Gender feminism is what is dominant. It's something that is man-hating, and it's largely LGBTQ driven. So when he says, what's the difference between liberal white woman ideology and gender feminist ideology? There is no difference. Gender feminism drives liberal white woman ideology, but does not encapsulate all of what it is, but it is essentially the driving force. Zachary writes, this will be slightly off topic, but watching your performance last night was like watching Floyd in his prime, a true masterwork. It was a masterclass in communication. I appreciate that. And the funny thing is it really inspired me, and I might do a video, whether it's a public discussion or a private video for the members with regards to the true use of most Black women today. I think it needs to be said. It'll probably be a private video if someone would remind me. Nicaragua Saint writes, great work on Lapeef last night. You're truly an intellectual, and I always learn watching your work. Thank you very much. Shout out to Luigi, writes, peace of saints. I hope you're well, Mr. Burton. I believe that your main streaming platform is no longer YouTube. If so, which one is it? It's kick.com, kick.com/Marquette Devon. Gentleman writes, will you be collaborating with Myron in the future? I've discovered the saints through him, and more people would benefit from this ism. Oh, absolutely. People are going to benefit from the ism, and we do have excellent plans to ensure that that is the case. We're the most important movement moving. So keep your eyes open. May I acknowledge 7. He writes, thank you for being an example. I learned so much from you, sir. Your presence on the panel last night was truly remarkable. I appreciate that. And did you guys notice, if you were on my live stream before I joined that panel last night, I predicted, and again, my predictions are prophetic apparently. I said, if Pearl knew that I was coming to a panel that she was going to be on, she's going to run because she can't see me intellectually. None of the white supremacists can. That's why I never get invited. It's because they're actually scared. And the moment I show up, all of their narratives break down like rapidly. As soon as I showed up, Pearl was like, oh, hey guys, I got to go. Yeah. Anyway, see ya. Bye. Click. It's like, whoa. Shout out to Wayne. He writes, peace of saints tuition. Shout out to Mr. Gardner, comes in via PayPal, writes, peace of the saints tuition. I appreciate you. I think I'm about to see him at Saints Weekend. Miles sent his email address. I think he's probably looking to come on and defend white supremacy or speak about DEI. So I'm gonna go ahead and send him this email, and then we're going to return to our regularly scheduled programming right now. So let's get after it.
Socially, we need to be careful not to describe AI in these science fiction movie ways of describing AI and causing people so much concern. We want to be concerned, but we also want to be practical. AI is about automation. And that area, I think that we need to be careful not to fall behind in the app.
Now, that was really dishonest, to be honest with you. That was dishonest, to be honest with you. The reason I say that is he simplified AI to automation. We already have automation in many areas. AI is not automation. I mean, that is ridiculous. And he knows better than I do, better than all of us, that AI is not just automation. AI is. To say AI is automation would be like saying that'd be like saying like a Kawasaki motorcycle is a bicycle. To say AI is automation, the reason he's oversimplifying it on purpose is to make it seem not scary. It's to make it seem as though it's not going to take your jobs, it's not going to control or possibly control, but be involved in every part of your life. That is why he's using this terminology, because he knows that Americans have fear of AI. And it's not only because of them losing jobs, it's also because of the potential dangers of AI. AI, one, can be unpredictable like humans. AI, for example, I've used AI model. I'm not going to name which one, but I was using one particular model. I asked it to generate something for me. And the first time it did it. And then I gave it the same prompt on a different day, and then it wouldn't do it. I was like, that's so strange. And I tried that prompt several times. Out of like 6 times, it did it 2 times. So software that we understand, like people, like I've been in the software business for a little while. What we understand software to be is it's a program and it runs pretty much the same way every time. It doesn't change because it can't change its own code, and it doesn't think, you see. So software is predictable. It's not like human beings. It's reliable and predictable. But AI, like a human being, almost has a personality and a perspective, and it can be unpredictable. And that's the scary part. So there are legitimate reasons to be scared of AI. He's oversimplifying it so that he can push his agenda. There's no doubt about it.
Application and the diffusion of AI, because in the end, whoever applies the technology first and most wins that industrial revolution. As you know, electricity was invented in the UK, but the United States applied it faster, more broadly, and as a result, look where we are. And so we have to be a little mindful. And so anyways, I just handicapped that stack, okay? Yeah. And I don't think it's important when you're looking at AI not to see it as a holistic thing. It's really not about ChatGPT versus DeepSeek. You have to look at it across all of the stacks and across all of the industries. Does that make sense? It's a little bit more complicated than one simple answer.
But do you feel you have a level playing field up against China putting their resources under Huawei?
Now, here's the funny thing. He already knows the answer to this, but he's acting like he's all thoughtful about it. And one thing you guys don't realize is that these two guys talking are on the same team. They're pushing the same agenda. There's already an agreement on what will be discussed and what direction they're trying to push the narrative. So it sounds like there's a free-flowing, extemporaneous exchange of ideas. Hell nah. They already know there are certain pieces of information, certain ideas that have to be conveyed. And this guy, who is an intelligent man, and even if he wasn't articulate, he already knows what his blue chip items are, his blue chip goals, and it's at the front of his mind. So this little look off into the distance and let me ponder, can we compete with Huawei and the Chinese government is backing them? Can we? Well, you're already competing with them. In fact, the narrative, and this is why the white supremacy narrative is always dishonest, because the narrative doesn't add up, right? They're saying we're superior. We're ahead of them. We're 6 months ahead. We're several generations ahead. Well, you've already been competing. So why is he asking if you can compete? Come on now. Did you guys catch that? You've already been competing. Why is he asking if you can compete? Doesn't make sense. Huh? The only time it makes sense if the goal of this charade is to make sure that you can secure more government financial backing, which is to say subsidy and welfare, and also force the government to deregulate and to allow you to do things that are probably not necessarily good for everyday Americans.
First of all, America.
Why is he acting like he just now heard of this question, that he's never thought of this? This man thinks about this every single freaking day.
America's technology industry, just as our financial services industry, our military, our technology industry, we can all agree, are the mightiest in the world. I am part of one of the mightiest industries anyone in history has ever seen.
Bro, giving an inspirational speech right now.
We have going toe-to-toe against anyone. The American technology industry has nothing to fear. We are mighty, we're fast, we're inventive, we'll take anybody on. However, we can't concede the market to them. As you know, at the moment, NVIDIA has been banned from going to China, not to mention China has banned them.
Now the question is, who banned you? Was it the American government? Was it Donald Trump? Was it China? Like, elaborate on that. And I hope that he will elaborate on that. Now, the funny thing is, well, if everything's working really well, then why do we need to change? If the American system is working well, why do we need to change? And also, we should look at some of those videos where he's talking to the Chinese. I think those are also very interesting videos. Kind of makes you wonder, well, whose side is he on? You guys used to sell tech to China, didn't you? Right? You're so pro-America, anti-China. You were selling them tech. Were you selling them bad tech? Were you selling them tech that they couldn't iterate on, that they couldn't improve? Whose team are you on? You're a multinational corporation. In fact, you're a multinational individual. Do you have dual citizenship? Somebody let me know. Important questions.
NVIDIA going to China. And so we're this, I think we're the first company in history that has been banned on both sides.
Now, here's the comedy, and this is how deceptive this gentleman is. No, we're the first company in history. We've been banned on both sides. All the while, we have the most valuable company on earth and the most opportunity for hyper growth. We're the biggest company on earth. But we've been banned on both sides. Come on now.
And so whoever banned us and going to China, them and China agree that NVIDIA should not go to. Now, of course, I'm being a little cute here, and I'm in China. Now, what's going on? We have conceded essentially the second largest AI market, the second largest technology market in the world.
I know.
China will. It's not. Somebody has said to me, "Well, yeah, okay. Well, we're not in China, but we're going to grow somewhere else. You're not going to replace China."
Duh.
And they want to export to America. If they don't export to America, you're not going to replace the United States. And so in the case of China, we shouldn't concede the entire market to them. They're formidable, but conceding that entire market, we ought to go compete for it. It's formidable technology.
Now, this is weird. And I want you guys to take note at how evil and deceptive what America calls capitalism is. Now, mind you, I am a capitalist, but I'm not a dirty capitalist. I'm not a heartless, lying capitalist. I'm an ethical capitalist. I think it's very unethical to keep confusing the American people and make them think that they're riding along with NVIDIA. You're not riding along with NVIDIA, little buddy. So he's over here talking about, we need access to the Chinese market. That's essentially what he's saying. We want to be able to sell into China. It's like, damn, dog, are they the enemy or are they not the enemy? Are you competing with China or are you not competing with China? You don't want to compete with China. You want to compete in China for money. That's what you want to do. Come on now. If they're buying, you're selling. What are we talking about here?
Companies the world has ever seen. They deserve, although they have a lot of support, whatever support they have, they deserve all of the respect that everybody ought to give them. We compete with this company. They're formidable. They're agile. They move incredibly fast. We said if United States was not in China, China's AI industry would be set back.
Yeah.
Absolutely has not happened. As a result, their semiconductor industry has double. You know, the semiconductor industry in the West.
Now, I'd be curious to ask him, like, hey, where have your semiconductors been made for the life of your company? Have they been made in Taiwan? Have they been made in the United States? Where have they been made all this time? I'm just curious as to how that's been going. Huh. Very curious stuff. Anyways, let me ask some of the folks supporting the work. For the fellow who emailed trying to get the link to come on, I already emailed you the link so that you can come on and present your arguments. I acknowledge Freddie supporting the work. Use the Stripe link. Shout out to Frank as well. Use the link as well. And shout out to Gary. Hit that Stripe link. Shout out to Teddy, who just became a member at patreon.com/thesaintandthesinner. We appreciate you. And I'll have to make sure that I do that video on the use of most Black women. Also, shout out to Omari, who just went to sasnbrand.com. He got the pigment dyed sweatpants, green ones. Shout out. Those are cold. Yes, indeed. May I also acknowledge Miles? Yeah, you're the one I sent the link to. So take a look at that. Another Miles comes and writes, "Peace of the Saints. Thank you, Mr. Burton, for this live and all the meaningful information. That is truthful. I will definitely be rewatching this one multiple times to soak up all the game. You completely destroyed my son. And the Willie D interview was very good as well. Thank you, Mr. Burton. I appreciate that. And shout out to Willie D. The funny thing is my son, I asked him, like, hey, did you want to do a round two? Because he's been in my comments so much, like arguing with random people, and he won't reply. He also did a reaction video today, which did not seem well attended. Shout out to Quat, writes, "Peace of the Saints. Appreciate you. Good to see you." Shout out to Sass in Texas. Theo writes, "Saint, I almost died laughing at Just Pearly Things running from Lapeef's stream the minute you showed up last night. Peace of the Saints. Just had to let you know we saw her run." Bruh, I'm trying to tell you, it was ridiculous. May I also acknowledge Seven. He writes, "Thank you for this lecture. Does it make sense for entrepreneurs to be thinking of new or innovative ways to create energy?" Me personally, I wouldn't want to get into that. And young man, I see you. I'm going to bring you onto the stream shortly. But me personally, I wouldn't want to get into heavy industry. It's expensive. It's slow. Is that good for the country to have more entrepreneurs going into heavy industry? Absolutely. I'd recommend it to be those who are already plugged in. They have significant family fortunes, great connections, because you're going to need all of the above. However, if you're an everyday person coming out of the lower class or worse, it's just too much capital to start a business like that. I wouldn't recommend it. I'd much rather invest money I can pull off of other businesses into that stock. He writes, "This may sound absurd, so please excuse me, but for example, could a technology be developed to extract energy from human activities?" Potentially, but I just don't think that it's going to give the level of energy that is required for the AI economy or the crypto economy. Shout out to Wayne. He writes, "More tuition for crucial information. The ism is the way. The ism is the future." Shout out to Zachary. He writes, "What are you experiencing internally while listening and dealing with people who weren't comprehending that you were trying to elevate their understanding and standards?" Well, really, it's just me being disappointed in myself. It's like, am I in the right place? Am I making a good use of my time? Should I be using so much time on such individuals or such a situation? And, frankly, there was maybe two or more individuals that were not getting it. And I should have accepted earlier that they weren't going to get it and then just withdrawn from that conversation. But, you have to have experience. Frankly, I don't have that situation very much. Shout out to Jay. He writes, "Showing love, peace of the saints. May also acknowledge via Venmo." Shout out to Das. He writes, "Peace of the saints. I become more intelligent every time I listen to you. I appreciate you." Shout out to the real ones. Shout out to Charlie. Writes, "Tuition." And also shout out to Teddy. Came in a strong way via Venmo. He writes, "I've always been a member saint. I just had to update your Patreon with my new card. You called it last night, Lapeef. As soon as you got on, she bounced." Bro, we need to cut up a clip on that one, man. We really do. May I also acknowledge, okay, Oh yeah, Omari went back and got the SASM brand joggers with the intricate stitching that we're actually about to discontinue. I got a pair of them. I'm wearing them right now, low key. Low key. Miles, what's on your mind?
Good afternoon, sir. How are you? Can you hear me okay?
I'm well. I can hear you well. If you guys are in the chat, if you'd be kind enough to populate an alpha one into the chat to confirm that you can hear and see the gentleman.
I think there's actually some kind of confusion. You had said to send $1 to get on your email list, and I've actually been following you about 6 months that I've been dealing with family court issues, and now I'm actually fighting 4 felonies for my First Amendment rights. And so I never imagined I'd be speaking to you today. I think you're one of the most amazing human beings that I've ever come across. I wish I could have had a mentor like you when I was a young man. You actually said, "Oh, I'm waiting on you, young man," but I'm actually 48 years old.
Right. I can only see you in that little small box before I hit you on, but talk to me.
I'm just, you had called me up. I actually agree with everything you're saying. I actually invested in Nivea. Unfortunately, it didn't go up for me at the time, so I lost hope, and now I see it's at 180. I agree with you on trying to find the energy stocks. I actually run a little station head station called L Block Radio. So I
Okay.
was actually simulcasting you to like 5 people, and we're in the chat just talking about you, saying how great you are. And so I've been on CTV and other YouTuber shows, Milagograms. So when you sent me the link to come speak to you, I feel not as I'm as educated as you are, but I would love to be in the same rooms as somebody like you. I actually tried to join your website, but there was no actual way to sign up or log in, and there was no way to send you an email. So actually, that's what I need to talk to you about. I want to
Okay.
get on
All
that
right.
website.
What site did you go to?
I believe it was the Marquette Devon.
Okay. So you went to marquettedevon.com. Okay, very
Yes,
good.
sir. I'm
So
sorry. I'm sorry.
yes, definitely go to the SASN, THESASN.com and click join. We've been, and I can say this now because we actually have another solution under the works, but we've been in digital warfare. One thing I haven't spoken about, we actually get a lot of cyber attacks on our sites. And so as a result, for several years, I've essentially run 4 member sites, and we primarily use the assassin. And under the event that we would suffer some kind of attack, I would just shut it down, pull everything out of the database and push it back up onto, say, marquettedevon.com, which those are sites that we don't really host members on actively. We just have them prepared in the case of a serious cyber attack, which we get quite a few of those, unfortunately.
I was actually around the time that you got demonetized on YouTube. So I was actually listening to of your first few lives where you
Oh,
were
wow.
letting people know what the situation was and why this was happening to you. I would have never thought that I was going through the same type of situation, but through my father's rights activism, I
Mhm.
actually made a video game parody and I started a recall against my local family court judge. And they ended up putting me in jail in the Twin Towers for
Wow.
6 days with the $200,000 bond, all based on my freedom of speech and to shut me down. But it's not going to stop me. When I listen to people like you, I just know that my problems are no different than other strong black men. I'm actually black and Mexican.
No
Um,
kidding. Okay.
other strong black men that are going through these things and that type of stuff. So I definitely want to know more about you, and I'll join some of your programs and stuff like that. Trying to rebuild myself financially as well. But not to do too much promo, but I actually wrote a book, Father to Felon.
Okay.
I went
That's a good title. Father to felon. Okay.
And that's all you have to put in is Father to Felon. It's on Amazon. I published it myself because I was actually trying to send it out to other people. The manuscript isn't the greatest, but that's not what it's about. It's about like a souvenir or just to get the word out that family court is doing this to men. I walked into family court with a normal relationship with my daughter. I had talked to her over 900 times since the beginning of the year. And on June the 9th, her mom filed a fabricated domestic violence restraining order. The
Mm.
court rubber stamped it, and I've been fighting ever since, and I haven't talked to her since. And so that's what the book is about. The book is loosely based on that because I actually printed the book. I couldn't sleep the first few days that I got out of the Twin Towers because I had never lost my freedom before. And
Right. I hear you on that one.
yes, sir. And so they had said that I had threatened my family court judge. I've never
Oh,
communicated with this
wow.
guy. I've never even been in the same room with this guy. I've only done LA Connect with him. And so it was actually a sheriff that I had spoken to on the phone that went to my lblock.org, Pam Ave and saw the video game parody, then went and took it to the judge, and then the judge signed off on me being a threat, and they kicked in my door with
Wow.
Glocks and rifles. I literally had my little dog Frank the Pug 818 on IG in my arms, and like literally, if one of these crackers made a mistake or decided
Oh, we
that,
got to stop you there. We got to
sorry, no,
stop
no,
you
no.
there.
But
You
you
gotta
know, if
be
they made
careful
a
with
mis
that.
if they made a mistake, I could have lost my life, all for my First Amendment rights.
Mhm,
And so I've been trying to figure out how to get this story out. And
mhm.
so I'm so happy that I was able to tell it to you, because to me, I'm humbled to be in your presence. I believe everything when you're speaking is so intellectual, and I feel so much smarter every time after I listen to you. And I don't know how I found you so late in life. You know what I mean? It's crazy how things work out. I was on the golf course at the country club all day, just making money, and these type of issues were nothing to me. You know what I mean?
Mm.
But now that
Yeah, life can be unpredictable, and I appreciate you coming on and sharing what you're going through. You know, you really are a champion for all of us, those who have already gone through the situation and those who unfortunately will. And so, what you can achieve won't just be for you. So, I appreciate you being kind enough to bear what is going on and speaking frankly. And the folks have your information. You guys can play it back if you need it. He dropped the website, dropped the book, and
well,
the
let me
IG. So check
explain
them
one
out.
last thing. Can I explain one last thing? I started
Don't no more racial slurs, and I'll give you 10 more seconds to wind down.
Well, I actually learned the term Skittle choker from you, so
Yeah, yeah,
you know
yeah.
what I mean. Like
Yes, sir.
some of my vocabulary comes from what I hear from you, but
Yes,
okay,
sir.
no, my
Not
word.
that last one though, for the
No,
record. Not that last one though. But
he
go
don't
ahead.
claim that. He don't
No,
claim
sir.
that.
No,
No
sir.
worries. Lblock.org, L as in Leilani, lblock.org is actually a self-help legal center for fathers. So if you ever get served with paperwork, it's free. What you go to is the self-help legal center. It's the same as neighborhood legal services, the same as what the court is doing, but theirs are all geared towards the domestic violence victim. Mine is geared towards the men, and so that you can learn how to do LA Connect. You don't actually have to go to the courthouse. You can do a lot of these things virtually, as we are here, as well as if you research your judge when you first get them, the first thing you can do is file a motion to change your judge, no questions asked. So there's lots of tools that parents, any parent, but I'm a father,
Mhm.
that can use at lblock.org. And I love you so much, brother, and I appreciate you. And man, this is the greatest dollar I've ever spent in my
I
entire
hear you. Hey,
life.
I hear
Like
you on that
fuck,
one, bro. I hear you on
fuck.
that one. It was a pleasure. Thank you for
Thank
joining. I
you,
trust
sir.
we'll
I
see you in the
appreciate. I'm
future.
so humbled. Thank you for your time and listening to me. You're the man.
Likewise. Peace of the
Thank
saints.
you.
Okay, there you go for the fathers. Back to the NVIDIA piece, and we're rolling.
Around the world is growing at 20, 30% per year. Growing 20, 30% per year compounded versus doubling every year compounded doesn't take long to catch up.
But, you know, they're starting on second base and we're just going up to the batter's box. You know, they've got a real advantage. And that means we need to think about this. Can I ask you, we, at the G20 summit, Li Keqiang, you know, the premier was there and he was offering opportunities for countries to be participants with China on AI. We didn't even send a delegation. It doesn't feel like we're in the game.
There's
You know, the funnier thing is not only is the United States not being effective in bringing new talent into the U.S., they've lost their marketing fire. But in addition to that, the talent that we already have in the United States, we're exporting. In some cases, we're just kicking them out. And that's not quite smart. Certainly, like any rational person, I am against illegal immigration. However, for those who are here and they're high IQ, they're contributors, they're high earners, high net worth, we need to retain as much of that talent and bring more cream from other crops into the United States. And some of the foolish decisions that Donald Trump has made, which will definitely affect NASA, research and development in our country, science, some of those foolish decisions he's made, we won't see the reverberations of this until 5, 10 years down the road. And that's the trouble, is that Donald Trump's stupidity today, we won't be able to see the true outcome of it for another 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. And that's the problem. Because, there may be a phenomenal scientist who would have been in the United States. Maybe they would have been here at university. Perhaps they would have been here working in a corporation. We're talking about top level guys, scientists, engineers, innovators. Instead, that guy is at, fill in the blank institute in India or in China. And that's the person who is able to unlock super intelligence, AI super intelligence. And that's our problem, is that we may miss that person. Whereas before, America didn't really have to market because we were the gold standard in terms of university. Our university system is still hanging on by a thread in terms of being the best in the world university system. Although the best engineering university, I've heard, MIT, has been beaten by an institution in China years ago. I'm sorry, not China, in India years ago. But I think we still pretty much have a good system, but it's falling apart, especially when you see the Donald going at institutions like NYU and Harvard, and primarily not even on his own volition, but because of one certain country has decided that those institutions need to be policed. And really, it's at our peril. When I say our, I'm talking about the citizens. May I acknowledge? Shout to Zachary, comes in via PayPal. He writes, it was disheartening to see the panel kept missing the points you were making about hierarchy and respect. Is it any wonder that they continuously misunderstand and misrepresent the position of their enemy? Whew, talk about it. Shout out to Trayvon. He writes, was just watching the panel you were on last night. I don't think it's a coincidence. When you started telling too much truth, your mic magically started cutting out. It's particularly weird because my mic was not cutting out, and I was just on a live session on my channel for an hour before that and had no mic issues whatsoever. I thought that was really peculiar that was occurring. And it wasn't quite that my mic was cutting out, it was that my mic was going on to mute. So it was a bit strange.
Smart about technology proliferation.
Yeah.
If we use 5G as an example, they realize 5G is technology that's also a platform, because on top of 5G, you build all kinds of services on top of it. Well, if you get there first, wherever you get first, if you get there first, just as NVIDIA, I was there 25 years first. And so I had, for a long time, nobody paid me any, never mind. So I had lots and lots of time to build up all these ecosystems and applications and relationships and ecosystems. And I connected all this stuff together in all these different fields of industry. I had 25 years to do it. In the case of Huawei with 5G, they were completely, through policy, completely isolated, people thought, in China. So they had 1 billion phone users all but to themselves. It gave them the opportunity to grow scale. They exported the technology to all of the countries of Belt and Road. And now there's AI Belt and Road. And so they'll definitely diffuse the Chinese technology as quickly as possible, because they understand that the sooner you get there,
now, what he's essentially talking about, I'll say it in simple terms, is that through the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative, which is a two-way street that I don't think he clarified very well, but the fact of the matter is that China's accessing markets and they're becoming embedded in markets. And one of the things I like about the African opportunity is there's a different level of dominance and monopoly that you can achieve in underdeveloped markets like Africa, for example, where there are no competitors, where you can be the only game in town. There was a time I funded it's called a cooktop, and it was a nonprofit that gives cooktops to rural villages in Africa, in Southeast Africa. And the reason is that the way that they were cooking before that, without this little bit of technology, was causing a lot of fumes and smoke that was being inhaled by children and the like. And so this nonprofit would go through and give them stove cooktops. I think they were solar powered. And so I would fund them to do this. And when you go on to say something as underdeveloped as those rural areas, there is no competition. It doesn't matter what you're selling, right? If you're an electricity company, there's no competition. If you're a solar company, there's no competition. If you're a cooktop company, there's no competition. Now, mind you, these weren't companies, these were nonprofits. But whatever the product is, there's no one else selling against you. Now, here's the good news. When you get embedded in an environment like that, your brand has just such an epic level of meaning in the consumer psyche. But also, let's say in addition to that nonprofit that went in there, a corporation or a business went in afterward and sold an ancillary product. This is not what I did. I'm just giving you an example. I've not sold any products in the African continent. My efforts there have been primarily employing people and philanthropic. But let me just give you an example with this cooktop. Say the cooktop needed to be serviced, or say the cooktop needed to be cleaned with special materials. So you gave them a free cooktop. They're using it. It's working well. They much prefer it to the old ways of cooking that cause all the black smoke that them and the mothers and the children inhale. So then you show up and you're a salesman, and these people don't have a lot of money, but they do have some money. And you say, hey, that cooktop, if you want it to work for another 2 years instead of conking out on you, then you're going to need to maintain it. You got to either fix it with this or you got to clean it with that. And I got this cleaning solution to clean your cooktop perfectly and it'll keep working. This is just $3. So boom, you get to sell. There's no competition at all. You're selling something that's utterly critical. And whatever the brand is of what you're selling is maybe the only brand that they know in this remote village. Maybe the only brand that has meaning, the only brand where they actually met a representative. And there's certain levels of entrenchment you can get in underdeveloped markets. I'm not just talking about rural Africa. I've never actually been to rural Africa. Actually, I've been 2 times very briefly, but mostly I'm in cities. I'm in major cities when I'm in the African continent. But the fact is there's so many opportunities. Like, for example, I remember one of the first times I went to Addis Ababa in Ethiopia, which the Chinese are there, mind you. The Chinese are there building. I think they were building a freaking soccer stadium the first time I went. But the fact of the matter is that I wanted to wear my contact lenses and I couldn't get any contact lens solution. So I left America with my contact lenses, but I ran out of solution. And most of the places I was in, Germany and this place and that place, I just buy a bottle. I end up in Ethiopia. I go to buy a bottle and I couldn't because they only wear prescription lenses because contact lenses are expensive and they don't have the specialists, the optometrists or ophthalmologists that can help with contact lenses. It's not a significant market for it. So if you were to bring contact lenses to Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, oh man, you're going to dominate. And you can charge a premium because they do have wealthy Ethiopians, obviously. So you can service just the wealthy Ethiopians, and they're going to be willing to pay because they don't have to fly to South Africa or fly to fill in the blank other nearby country. Or UAE is probably where they go to Dubai. So you're going to make a killing, and you're going to be so dominant. That's a real monopoly. And more importantly, because the market is underdeveloped, unlike, say, if you were in America and you established a monopoly, which usually is going to take a little bit of fighting, dominance, acquisition, and trickery, the American system is supposed to stop you from creating monopolies. The system in most retrograde economies is not going to stop you from creating a monopoly unless you're at odds with the government. And mostly you won't be because you'll be raking in money and they'll be sharing in the profit. So I hope you understand the point that I'm making in terms of what China is doing and how they're positioning themselves, and they're creating trust in their product services and, in that connection. Shout out to Terrence, comes in by PayPal. He writes, last seeing Pearl immediately run right after you predicted it would happen. Right after you predicted it would happen was truly entertaining. These internet white supremacists are no more than spineless grifters grasping at low-hanging fruit to make a quick buck. No intellectual integrity at all. Truly despicable. 100%. Shout out to Zachary. He writes, I felt that panel, and probably most people, don't understand who you truly are, much less what you're fighting for. How do you deal with not being understood by people who seem to need you the most? And I appreciate that, Seven. I think that you're completely accurate. And in fact, it's disheartening in as much as, just imagine this. Imagine you're trying to, for some foolish reason, and maybe I'll be cured of this one day. For some foolish reason, you're trying to help people lift themselves up economically. And it benefits you not at all. You're trying to help people build strong families. You already have a strong family. You have a great home to live in, great cars to drive, and prestige and liquidity. And you're trying to do that for other people. And it's almost like they're fighting you when you're trying to help them. And there's no incentive, I don't benefit from it at all. To be honest with you, had I never engaged in any of this talk of ideology or of Black people or of gender relations, I'd be in a much stronger position in the tech world, which is a very liberal world. So it's just it's a peculiar experience. But the good news is that As I'm not a racist, my work is not with black people. My work is with good people. And so I don't have to deal with all black people because they're black. Just like I told the young lady on the panel, I noted that, some of you are going to be left behind. You're one of them. We're going to take the women who are honest, honorable, good women. We'll take the men who are strong, integrity filled, and we'll move with that. And those of you who are weak, dishonest, effeminate males, you're done. So, and all of the people, the good peoples of all of the races and religions, we're going to roll with them. And then whoever doesn't want to roll with us is going to get rolled over. And that's what it has to be. I wish I didn't have to say it out loud, but it just is what it is, because there are irreconcilable differences. Just imagine I was speaking to one of those gentlemen who seemed, reasonably pleasant, but he couldn't understand the idea of communicating with respect. It's such a basic. And when someone does not understand respect, there's nothing else you can teach them that is of meaning. You can't teach hierarchy. You can't teach family structure. All of those things will fall on deaf ears. And so for that reason, you have to either leave these people alone to their own devices, make sure they don't poison your society. And, if they make that attempt, then you have to slay them.
The sooner you build the ecosystem on top, the sooner you become you become essential part, a dependent part of that ecosystem.
Tell me about the Chinese ecosystem they're trying to create. Obviously, it's deep and it's robust, and that it has a physical as well as a technological and economic dimension. How do you look at that?
Take a step back again. Remember, I think it's 9 out of the 10 top science and technology schools in the world are now in China.
There you
They
go.
lead in science and technology in many different fields.
It's a wrap.
This has completely flipped in the last half to a decade. We used to lead most of them. Now they lead most of them.
Now, check this out. He said all of the leading school, not all, but many of the leading schools in science and tech are Chinese. The schools, right? Okay. Make America great again. What have you heard about Donald Trump's investment in American education? You've heard the opposite. You've heard defunding. You've heard him suing American educational institutions. You've heard him reducing the foreign population. Now, mind you, international students, they pay more tuition, so they're of a great value. And of course, these are upper class people, even greater value. So we've only seen him destroy the thing that is our future and would actually make America great again. But will they acknowledge that in this conversation? No, I don't think that they will. I think they're going to skip over that and overlook that little small fact.
They have a large population of highly qualified students.
Absolutely.
Number one. Number two, 50% of the world's AI researchers are Chinese. Third, 70% of last year's AI patents are published by China.
Woo!
The ecosystem of AI in China is vibrant, rich, incredibly innovative.
Yeah.
They work incredibly hard.
Yeah.
This is a country with an enormous.
So, and I got another video I'm going to go through too, and it compares American tech and Chinese tech. Unfortunately, it's 2 years old, but it was the best one I could find that'll give you some side by sides in terms of American aircraft, American trains, American consumer tech, American phones, American cars versus the Chinese equivalent. So I think it's really important to take a look at that, even though it's not as recent as I would like. I'll give you guys a little bit of time if you want to keep it going and really get into this stuff. That one will be a lot more visual. You can use the information below or the information in the description of the video to support the work, and we'll carry it on. Bro said I'm hearing the first part of the La Cucaracha horn. La Cucaracha, La Cucaracha. Da-da-da-da-da. Anyways, let's see. Shall we go on? I want to check out something a little different with you guys. Got a couple pieces of info I think you ought to see. Oh, and by the way, there was an email from a gentleman referring to some videos that are for the members only. There's one called Don't Marry Her If She Does This. Highly recommended. If you're a member, definitely check that one out. Really a huge value, that particular lesson. And, last night's experience on the panel reminded me of that one. And that's why I wanted to remind you of that. If you are a member, do check it out. Okay. So much stuff we can go through that I got here queued up. 3 other videos. Let me find one that I know I at least want to touch on a little bit. We're going to get back rocking. It's right. Where's that link? There we go. Boom. Booyah! Booyaka! 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 Shout out to those who know about that Assassin Haka. You dig the Assassin War song. Before we get going, shout out to Frank supporting the work. Very consistent, brother. I also acknowledge Linga, who just became a member at thesassin.com. That's THESASN.com. I also acknowledge Mario, writes, keep it going, Peace of the Saints. Shout out to Pawan, writes, Peace of the Saints. Thank you, Mr. Bird. Shout out to Kane. He writes, internal mantra to keep in mind. The lying liar lieth, and still they lie their lies. This planet will be burnt up by the so-called superior people. It appears that way. The people who supposedly spread morality across the planet. Yes, we've not seen that. May I acknowledge 7, back again. We got 7 supported so many times. I'm wondering about you guys who have never supported. Like, what's the difference in psychology, right? Really different. Shout out to 7. At least hit the button. I guess the like button doesn't matter. Like button does. I'm not going to lie. On this stream, it doesn't matter. He writes, thanks for the feedback on everything so far. If you were in your mid-20s today, what cities around the globe would you consider establishing a base in, and why? Well, you didn't give me any context. Mid-20s, no kids, and I'm rich. Mid-20s, no money. Mid-20s, fresh with a degree and a little bit of change. I need some context. But I tell you what, if I was in my mid-20s, I would try to develop a unique skill set. There's no doubt I would be in tech, and I'd be in the most sophisticated aspects of AI. And I'd be really concerned with ethical hacking, which is the only way you can get a proper degree in, hacking is ethical hacking. So I'd be on the ethical hacking side of AI, trying to figure out how do you break AI? How do you manipulate AI? Can AI have a religion? How do you get AI to believe in a religion? How do you make AI behave like a human? Like, I would really want to be in the darkest part of AI because that's where you're going to get the big bucks. And where I would want to have a base is if I'm an American by birth, surely you already have that. There's nothing to worry about there. I'd be more concerned about getting a foothold in the Middle East because you can operate in English and they have a lot of capital. It's dumb capital, but it's still capital. And then secondly, I would get a foothold in China because you have to do business with the Chinese moving forward. And I would just play it from there. Shout out to Portia writes, Peace of the Saints. Even when you were silent on last night's panel, you still commanded presence, always learning from how you carry yourself, Saint. Thank you. I appreciate that. May I acknowledge Wayne writes, more tuition for continuing on this topic. Okay, let's get it then. Shout out to Matthew. Matthew, I was just thinking about you earlier today. Pause. He writes, Peace of the Saints. How should entrepreneurs position themselves with the emergence of AI? Use it. He writes, will B2C remain superior to B2B? Yeah, for sure. But the good thing is with the speed of AI, it'll allow everything to be faster. And the problem with B2B, as I trust you're referencing, is the time involved, the time to build sophisticated solutions. And what you might be able to do is be faster to market with B2C get your money flowing in faster because you can iterate so quickly, you can deploy so quickly, and then start with the B2B place because that's where the enormous money is. It's not big money, it's enormous money, right? Hundreds of millions of dollar deals. He writes, how soon will we see changes in the changes are already there. They're already there. There were times that I had to let people go in a number of my businesses. In some cases, it was underperformance. In other cases, it's getting banned on YouTube. In other cases, it's tariffs. And already much of that labor has been replaced. And some of those folks were legitimately smart. They could do things that I couldn't do. But with AI, I can do it, or I can use an AI agent. So it's still, the principles are the same. The principles of capitalism will remain the same, and the principles of good technology will remain the same. Truth be told, my course called How to Create and Monetize Your Own App, the core of that course is about revenue models in the software business. And that course is still a damn good course. You can still leverage that and get paid. I'm going to come out with a technology soon. Probably won't attach it to my name just because there's so many attacks on my name. But it'll be an example of, how you can really still thrive in the software business. And in addition to that, I'm going to do a course. I probably don't even know if I want to call it a course, but at least a practicum. Me, when I'm in the software game, we really work. And what I like to do is I like to really grind it out. So what I'll probably do is set aside a day, and we'll start early in the morning, and we'll have a couple meal breaks. This is probably how it's going to go. And we'll get all the folks who want to do it. I'll put a price on it, and then we'll do it kind of similar to this, except you guys can come on screen and we'll have all the tech and all the different systems that we're using. And then we're going to go through, and I just want to grind out for at least 5 hours, a minimum of 5 hours. But I want to basically take something from zero to full deployment. I mean, full deployment, like people can use it and make money on it that day. And then we're going to do that all with AI. Now, it's not going to be just one type of AI. You're going to have to integrate probably different kinds of AI, different technologies, but I want to do that one. Look at this kind of stuff right here. It's like people just don't soak up the teachings. He writes, Saint, keep this up on YouTube. Why? Like, why? Like, if you really care that much, get a membership. Just get a membership. Like, I always teach, do not you're not a child or a woman. They ask for the freebies. Men, we pay what we owe. Pay what you owe. It's just simple. And you'll never have someone who looks at you twice and wonders if you're a true friend. You'll never have someone who questions your manhood. Pay what you owe. If you find something to be of value, you pay for value. That's the world that we're in. Like, don't use me. I've never used you. I've never asked you for anything. Young man, whoever you are, I've never asked you for one thing. I've already given you freely. Why are you asking me for more? Like, that's not manly. It's not respectable. It's not even fair. But anyways, that's what I'm probably going to do. It'll be a course on how to create technology with AI. We'll just make it that simple. And we'll go through the whole damn thing. It'll be a grind out. At least I want to do 5 hours. Even though for meetings, I always keep meetings to 1 hour, but that's going to be a practicum. That's going to be like we're working within the same corporation. And I think it'll be fun. And I already know exactly the idea I want to put forward. If we can do it within 5 hours, that'll be insane. And it's possible to do it inside of 5 hours. The only reason that I really want to take 5 hours is because that's what's more realistic for you, meaning you, the consumer. For me, maybe I could get it off the ground inside of 5 hours, because when you're using AI to develop, there's a certain way you have to talk to AI, because the AI is the engineer. Being that I've done software development and I've hired engineers and had to work with DevOps and all these different entities, I know how to talk to the AI to make the AI more efficient. And I also know what's missing, right? Like, if you've never developed any technology before, you're not thinking to even tell the AI to create, this kind of security in your authentication, to create a backend web admin portal to store your data here and do this integration. You don't understand what's under the hood of a technology. So you can't even tell the AI, you can't instruct it properly. So I can instruct it pretty efficiently. So I'm going to try to do it like the long way, the hard way. I'm going to go through it in a bit more of a novice way so that it's slower and longer so that you get the real experience of what you will go through. And I don't want to do things too quickly so that people aren't discovering all the details needed to actually get from, oh, gee, I think that's a good idea. And I took Marquette's How to Create and Monetize Your Own App course. So I know about revenue models. So I already thought of the revenue model. I want to build some technology using AI. And then you go through all the way to deployment. So I estimate that should take about 5 hours. So yeah, I'll do that at some point. I got a business trip that I got to do. I might even do it when I'm out on the business trip. Just depends on how long I stay in developed countries with good internet. But anyways, thank you for that question. May I acknowledge Brad? He writes, for hopping on the panel last night. I appreciate you. And shout out to Cooley, by the way. That's a good friend. Like, it's very rare that you have like true, sincere friends, people who want to see you succeed and support you in that. So shout out to Cooley, truly a good friend. May I acknowledge, and that's the only friend I have in the YouTube space. I don't have any other friends in the YouTube space. Shout out to John. He writes, I loved your appearance on the podcast last night. Are you open to doing more? Also, looking forward to the upcoming. I'm not sure. Is this like John? Like, are you from the Lapeef Network or a viewer? Yeah, potentially. I think I was probably there a little long, but it was cool. It's a decent experience. Good people for sure. I like the people. Very honorable people, except maybe 2 of them. Also looking forward to that upcoming roast. I'm not sure if people understand the reasoning for those scheduled videos yet. Considering the future is China, doesn't this show that communism actually works? No, it doesn't, because the Chinese are not proper communists. That's why I said earlier that it's a Chinese system. Communists would not run a government in the way, they wouldn't run an economy in the way that the communists run their economy. So no, it doesn't show that communism works. It shows that the Chinese system works. Shout out to Terrence. He writes, I plan to pursue cybersecurity, ethical hacking, etc. I'm currently using Coursera. Is this adequate, or is there another route you would suggest? I don't know if it's adequate, to be honest with you, because I've never used Coursera in general or for that specific reason, or that specific purpose. However, what I would encourage you to do is to look up a job that has the pay level and the job duties that you want. And then I'd contact the employer and submit your interests and say, hey, I need 2 things from you, and don't allow them to not give you these 2 things. What I need, number 1, from you is I need you to tell me exactly what the best preparation is for this job, best place to get educated, and get all of the options of education that they prefer and that people who are currently working that job have. And then I would ask them, can I submit my application for this role with my current preparation? They'll probably say no. Ask them exactly what you need at a minimum level. Acknowledge Kane. He writes, you know what it is. If you and I go get some government subsidies, people are going to come out of the woodwork and call us the fatigue welfare kings, but they can do it. And because they can do it because they are the establishment. It's curious, isn't it? I mean, the whole DEI conversation is mostly ridiculous, especially as it relates to the Black people, because we're a minority. The DEI is going to benefit mostly white women by far. And and women in general, we see Black women have lost their employment at record rates. And that's because they were largely unnecessary hires in the United States government. And Black women flock to government. People who are incompetent flock to government because it's a steady, reliable gig that has very low expectations. That sounds terrible, but unfortunately, that's just what it is. Anyways, let's see if we can get this video playing here. Again, this is not the latest. This is in fact 2 years old, but it'll give us some baseline. Anytime you hear a discussion of technology or just America versus China, and you do not hear a discussion of military or military spending or dominance in military tech, hardware, etc., then there's a major part of the conversation missing. What I want you guys to be mindful of is that a lot of these things are, first off, a lot of times the technology is developed first for military and then applied to consumer markets. That's just the truth. But sometimes it works the other way around. But know that when we're talking about aircraft, what are we also talking about? Air Force. Yeah, we're talking about Air Force. We're talking about fighter jets. And those are important capacities to understand. And you guys might remember 6 years ago today, and I'd said this before, but I've only been on YouTube for 6 years. At that time, I said that the most strategic thing to do in America would be to completely unprovoked, out of nowhere, hit China with a nuclear bomb. I said that 6 years ago. People were like, what? This is crazy. And it was because they were far behind enough, and it would be unprovoked, that there would probably be human error and human failure in responding. So we might be able to eradicate them and thereby remove the only realistic and plausible threat to American hegemony. A failure to do so at that time would ensure that America ends up in a war, whether it's a Cold War, a war of technology, a war of fill in the blank, that it would lose. And people were thinking I'm crazy. So you could do that and be efficient and destroy not all of the Chinese people or all of China, but rather destroy significant capacity and wipe out their political class in Beijing. And then basically leave the rest of the people just to try to recover. But now you're in something that is all the more protracted, prolonged, and dangerous, and that America inevitably will lose. And if the war ever turns hot, the war is going to be so much more gruesome and grueling on both sides. So, people don't understand that how sometimes a brilliant mind can find a solution, which is mathematically speaking elegant, very efficient, but it appears on the face of it extraordinarily ruthless. But in actual fact, it's the most kind solution to the human problem, because there's no doubt that there will be a showdown between the United States and China. Unlike the Soviet Union, the United States is not going to go quietly. They're going to go swinging haymakers. And unfortunately, when these imbeciles start swinging haymakers, it's going to escalate into hot war, the likes of which the planet Earth has never seen. It'll be utterly devastating on both sides, but mostly on the side of the Americans. And frankly, the death toll will be untold. It'll be more bodies than can be counted. It'll be a level of calamity that the United States cannot recover from. The Chinese will certainly be able to recover, just surely because they have Chinese citizens throughout. Their diaspora is insane, huge. They also have an enormously large population. And their technology, by the time that showdown occurs, their technology will be superior. Their defenses will be superior. Their offense will be superior. And for that reason, failing to do what I described 6 years ago has created a bigger opportunity for human calamity. Shout out to T. He writes, late but here. Stellar display of IQ and EQ on that panel last night, Saint. That inspired me to revisit the Master Communicator course. Oh, absolutely. And anyone who has any of my courses, you can use them for all time. The Master Communicator course is a set of knowledge or a set of lessons that I review before I go into these situations, because none of us are perfect, and good information should be repeated. Thank you for sharing that and making a good reminder to everyone. Now, I also acknowledge Randolph came in a strong way via PayPal. He writes, first time support. The content is on the highest level. Here's my tuition. I appreciate you. And shout out to Randolph doing something new. It's always great to see people do new things. That's a beautiful thing. I always remind that being able to do new things is what enables you to find greater success in this world. If you run out of game, you're going to run out of change. And the world is certainly changing right now. So this is a time for all of us to be doing new things. Carrying on. So here we are in the discussion about planes.
Your aircraft fleet.
Bro name is Abula Fia. Where is that from? That's curious. Now, in heavy industry, when we say heavy industry, we might be talking about armaments, aviation, the things that are big and expensive, vehicles. Having a 100-year head start is very important. However, it's worth noting that with AI and with modernity and China's ability to copy technology, and they're the best at that, that 100-year head start is not as meaningful as it once was, perhaps. And the truth is, China's had all the time in the world to reverse engineer the Boeing. I mean, they and the rest of the world have been buying them. The Chinese are extremely capable, and they have a similar advantage, comparatively speaking, to what the Americans had going into World War II in terms of our consumer economy production. So the idea of the Chinese not having their own airliner is outrageous, and that's why they fixed that. And that's something you have to respect about the Chinese. We'd be impressed to see the Africans realize the same thing. But shout out to China. Kudos for that one. Carrying on. One of the things that's very important to understand is, the more you give China time, the more they're going to develop militarily. Now, me, I'd like to live in a peaceful world, but as we're in a European paradigm, it's not going to be peaceful. And so as long as there will invariably be warfare, the question is, how do we win, right? And being that I'm an American national as opposed to a Chinese national, I want to know, how do we win, the Americans? And, China may very well have a fine air force, right? And I know China sells weapons to various countries and non-countries, right? Non-state actors. We find Chinese weapons in the Sudanese conflict. But the fact of the matter is that if a country has not successfully put forward a commercial aviation offering, then of course we can question the ability of their air force, right? And that's a good thing for the Americans or the Westerners. Now, there's no doubt that the nature of the Air Force, as we know it, has changed dramatically with the introduction of drones. And understand something. This is why I don't trust any of the Westerners when they're talking about, China's so behind. It said this is a state-owned enterprise. Now, that's communist-like, right? State-owned enterprise, that's communist type stuff. But it works, especially for heavy industry. Like the truth is, I think the United States would probably be in less of a military industrial complex if there were certain aspects of government that were state owned and others that were not. Government doesn't do terribly well with education, for example, or the DMV. But with regards to weapons, it kind of makes sense that the government would be a weapons maker. It would maybe reduce the quality theoretically because there'd be less competition, but I think it'd just be a different nature of competition. The competition would be international as opposed to domestic. But anyways, this state-owned enterprise here, of course, is going to be well-funded. Now, the difference between 50 billion and 72 billion is very significant. And you don't know the difference because China is not showing all of its cards. I think the difference between the, shall we say, Oriental versus Western way of representing the self is that, especially today, the West will say, we got the best. I don't know. Can you say that? But I'm going to say it anyways. We're the best and we have the best of everything. You talk about aircrafts. We got aircrafts. We have rocket launchers. And so what we'll do in the West is we'll represent everything that will show the best of what we have. And either that's our top thing and we just revealed everything to the world, or we spoke it up as though we were very high level and the reality is not as good as the image. Whereas I surmise in the Chinese case, they'll put out some tech, which is good tech, but it's still not the best that they have. And they've not revealed all of their cards. They're holding some of their cards close to their chest. We don't know how much they've invested in the state-owned enterprise. We don't know how many aircraft carriers they actually have. We have a sense of how many we think they have, but we don't know how many they actually have. We don't know how many nukes they actually have. That's the whole point of being strategic from a military standpoint is secrecy. And I just think that the hubris of the West does not calculate for the fact that China is largely a black box and it's a radically different culture than our own. And there's an assumption that if things go left, that the Europeans are going to help us or side with us. And, frankly, that's not the case. And for money, the Europeans can be split apart, or shall I say the Westerners can be split apart. And what that means is, just as you saw in that last graphic, that Chinese market, which is a highly valuable market, right? 1.4 billion people, and air travel is becoming increasingly popular, especially as the per capita income shoots up. You have a market that's just so valuable. And it's split between Airbus, the Europeans, Boeing, the Americans, and the Chinese want to create a solution. So the question is, who's going to lose market share? Now it's a war between the West and the West, Europe and the United States. Those are the things we have to pay attention to and take seriously. And I don't think that the Europeans are great partners. And, there's a lot of reasons for that. Shout out to Kene, he writes, from the perspective of the people like Pearl, Marquette Devon Burton is a Yeti or a Bigfoot showing up. The Chupacabra in a real way. Low key, I like that Chupacabra. Somebody remind me to name a website Chupacabra. Let me see if that domain is available. I fell in love with that. It is not available. That's a pity. But anyways, he writes, the Loch Ness Monster, a red dragon, because he will cut through their web of lies like someone cutting a spider web with a stick. Oh, yes, indeed. I mean, listen, Shorty got so ghost so quickly, and it was a pity that I predicted it. Anyways, carrying on. Pity for her. Now, we're not going to go through these technical details because it's not necessary, but what I want to highlight for you guys is how indecent the American plutocracy is. They try to scare you and I and tell us that the Chinese are our enemies, the Russians are our enemies, the Muslims are our enemies, the Nigerians are our enemies, the Venezuelans, the Afghans. Well, the list goes on indefinitely. Who do they want to scare us with each week? Now, here's the kicker. China's our enemy, but when you hear about all of this technology cooperation, it kind of makes you wonder, like, yo, I don't trust anything the government says. And I'll tell you something that's even funnier. You remember 2020, that pestilence that ravished the land? I can't even say it because your government allows for censorship, right? But in 2020, that thing that came out, everybody had to stay inside their homes. That was said to have been from a lab in China. Okay. Now, here's the other thing. That was from a lab in China, but it was funded by the United States. How's that work? How's that work? Come on now. Somebody explain to me, how does that work? The level at which we are being lied to is something that should just get you spitting mad. Shout out to Wayne. He writes, more tuition for this heavy coverage of this topic. Absolutely. We're going in. And thank you to those who stand up and support. Thank you to those who are members. I really appreciate you. Thank you to those who send in tuition. It means a lot.
As well as whether geopolitical tensions could pose a risk to its C919 program.
Conforming, that is to say, each article. The
lack of maintenance.
Point out something. Trump thinks that he's playing hardball, but often he's just actually hurting us. Well, Marquette, what do you mean? Imagine China already has an aviation program under development. It's a state-sponsored enterprise, state-owned enterprise. And then Donald Trump's like, oh, we're not going to give you any chips from NVIDIA. We're not going to give you any Boeing. So then the Chinese are like, okay, we need to go move faster on this aviation thing. We have to move faster on this chip technology. So you didn't hurt them. You actually forced them to do something that's beneficial to themselves at a faster rate. Like, it's just, his strategies are so bad. They're counterproductive. Insanity. I'm gonna take a pause for the cause. If you guys want to keep it going, I'll keep it going. If you guys are like, hey, you know what? I've heard enough good information. I'm good. Then we'll go ahead and call it. And thank you again to those who support the work. You make this possible. We may have 1,000 people watching across the different platforms I'm streaming on, but less than 1% support. And so you guys are the 1% that matter. You guys are the 1% that allows this to happen. You're the 1% that I do it for. So I thank you for participating. You're appreciated greatly. Okay. You know, the thing that you should always be asked, I wish one of these reporters would ask one of these politicians when they're like, we need to do this. It's like, who's we? How does that affect an everyday person such as myself? Shout out to Isaiah supporting the work, came in using the Stripe link, as did Taisheen. Appreciate you. Use the Stripe link as well. Shout out to Marcos. He just went and got the fleece sweatpants, and those will be discontinued within 24 hours, just so you guys know on that one. May I also acknowledge Wayne's back here as friendly reminder to donate to the training center. Anything helps. Oh yeah, true that, true that. Yes, indeed, we do have the training center. And man, those black women last night, boy, we all should have been thinking about the training center. That was utterly bonkers, that display that we observed. The thing that hurt me with one of the ladies is that she kept saying, like, you have to listen to me. You have to listen. I'm not doing anything unless I know that you listen to me. I was like, do you not hear yourself? Like, you're so focused on you. It's like me, 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 me. Like, yeah, it just... Some people, some people. And that's not to say that she's like a mean-spirited person. There's just something, there's just a great lack that can never be filled. And someone who's so focused on the self, they can never give anything to you in the way of emotions and compassion and anything that you would seek. Anyways, let me wind down. I want to give you guys this particular video as my wind down video right here. I think it's a good summary. So look at this one. Then we'll get out of here. And again, thank you to those who support the work.
2025, a $6 million Chinese...
Let me rewind that for you.
January 2025, a $6 million Chinese AI just humiliated America's $100 million models. Wall Street panicked. Nvidia lost $600 billion overnight. But here's what the...
Now, number one, this whole such and such lost this amount of money, that's always nonsense and never really actually has any meaning. And this is typical in the tech business where you have a giant that can be unseated by a startup. That's why tech is the most competitive industry on earth, because someone sitting at a desk in a Starbucks can destroy a corporation that has a headquarters in Manhattan or in Silicon Valley. Neither of these things are surprising. And in this war of AI, we'll see both sides will be announcing wins throughout.
Headlines missed. The AI race isn't just about who builds the smartest robots. It's about who controls the future of everything, from your job to national security. And right now, America and China are burning through money like it's going out of style. The US is spending $320 billion in 2025 alone. That's Amazon, Google, Meta, and Microsoft combined. Meanwhile, China's government is pumping $100 billion into AI with a strategy that makes Silicon Valley look uncoordinated. First battleground, chips. The US controls the design. Nvidia owns 80% of AI chips. But here's the twist. We banned China from buying our best stuff. Result? They got creative. DeepSeek just proved you can build world-class AI with inferior chips. Oops. Second battleground, power. AI is hungry. We're talking 165% increase in electricity demand by 2030. China builds nuclear plants and coal facilities at warp speed. America, we're...
And again, this is meaningful, but this piece about energy, it's necessary, and it's just letting you know what's upcoming. And so if you ever want to be wealthy, it's not about doing the best job right now. It's about being first. It's about anticipating. The only thing better than having a great energy company today is being the first person to create a great energy company. The only thing better than buying a great home today is having bought the home 10 years earlier. So the ability to be early, to be first, is highly valuable. And that's the best advice I can give to any entrepreneur right now. What I'm telling you and what the video has been telling you all day is that there's going to be increased demand for energy. So that means increased business for energy companies. So that means that you should be buying stock in energy companies. I can't say it any more plainly. Now, here's the comedy. Just as less than 1% of people support my work, they say they enjoy it, but less than 1% support, and even smaller percentage of people want to be successful. So they'll hear me say that. They'll not lift a single finger. In 3 years, the energy companies will have skyrocketed. They could have made 20% on their money minimum. and they will miss out on that opportunity. And it'll probably be like mostly the same people who are not allocating capital. They only allocate capital for a coffee or for a Snickers bar or fast food. They're not willing to peel off a couple bucks to invest in their own education, invest in themselves, invest in things that are valuable, because they're casual. They're not engaging with something. They're viewing it like they're not being active in life, so to speak.
Still arguing about permits. China produces over 10,000 terawatt hours. The math isn't pretty. Third battleground, brains. China has 47% of the world's top AI researchers. They're churning out engineers while we're, well,
here's the funny thing. China has, let's say, rounded to 50%. But what they're not telling you is what America's percentage is. And that's the problem. It's an important part of the data, but I think we know that it pales in comparison.
Just say Jensen Huang is worried about losing.
And again, this is like utterly pathetic. You got a nigga named Huang, who's clearly Chinese, and he's our lead guy fighting against China. Just the level of vulnerability there is utterly pathetic. Just imagine when we're going up against the Russians, we had Americans defecting to the Soviet Union. Like, if this guy doesn't have defector written all over him, I don't know who does. And that's not racist. That's just common sense, right? Like, for example, like, I'm a foundational Black America. America's all I know. It's all my parents know, all my grandparents, all my great grandparents know. But let's say I wasn't a Black American. Say that I was Haitian and we're at war with Haiti, and I'm like your lead, your 5-star general in the military. Like, you wouldn't be concerned that I might, like, come on. It's common sense.
50% of global AI developers to China. So who's winning? Plot twist. It's complicated. The US still leads in breakthrough models, 40 major AI systems created in 2024 versus China's 15. But China's closing the gap fast. Performance differences that were double-digit in 2023, now it's basically tied. And here's the kicker. 83% of Chinese citizens believe AI will...
And this is an irrelevant statistic.
...tools for the technology that'll reshape civilization.
They're basically saying that the Chinese citizens are more open to AI than the American citizens. It doesn't matter if they're open or not. AI is here and it's going to proceed because the European paradigm is one of war, and AI and technology in general is critical to war. So it shall proceed.
China's betting on state control and efficiency. America's betting on innovation and freedom. The winner?
Now, and this is the lies of white supremacy. It's America's betting on innovation and freedom. Like, these abstractions, freedom, democracy, these are all fake things that are used to persuade and to confuse. America's not betting on freedom. That's complete nonsense. It suggests that China is engaging in state-sponsored capitalism, also known as like the Chinese model of communism, which is not perfectly communist nor capitalist. Whereas the United States is actually doing the same thing. They're just doing it in different ways or at a slower pace, but they're doing the same thing and lying about it. That's the difference. The Chinese are saying this is a state-sponsored or a state-owned enterprise or business, if you like. Whereas the United States says, oh, no, that's NVIDIA. Do you guys remember when Donald Trump was talking about, oh, maybe the government should take 10% of NVIDIA? That's communism. Or the idea of subsidies. That's even worse than communism, because in the communist system, the government might finance the project, but they own the project. They own the means of production. Conversely, in the capitalist system, the government will take the tax dollar from the poor and middle class. Then they'll subsidize, which is give welfare to the corporation, but they don't even own the corporation. The government doesn't own the corporation, so they can't pull any profit out on their investment. There's no return on investment that you could return to the taxpayer. So it's basically free money for the corporation. And that, my friends, is called a plutocracy. And that is essentially what you and I are in.
Maybe it's whoever figures out how to make AI work for actual humans. The AI race is far from over. China just proved that throwing money at problems works differently than we thought. America's still got the edge in creativity, but China's got the edge in execution.
So this is a story that may have once been true, but it's so far from true. America doesn't have the edge in creativity. I've done business and lived in Asia, and I will say that there's just no doubt that there's higher levels of compliance, hierarchy, and less creative thinking. However, the factor that you have to consider is this. When you have 1.4 billion people, you can have lower percentage of creative minds. Just the sheer volume or just number of persons, the total number of persons, you're going to have an idea that is novel, that is creative, that is unusual, just because you have 1.4 billion chances to have a genius, whereas America has 360 million chances to have a genius. It's just quite simple. Unless you believe somehow that the Western genetics are so superior to the Chinese genetics, that's the only way you would think that the Chinese are going to be outperformed. And just frankly, that's clearly not the case, because if that was the case, the face of American tech would not be a Chinese face, right? It would be a European face. And it's just frankly no longer the case that the Europeans are dominating. So those are things that have to be dealt with if the West is going to maintain hegemony. Ladies and saints, it's been a pleasure at this time to fellowship with you all. Until next time, peace to the saints.